and in different varieties, pre-snap, 12 in a huddle, illegal formation. We had 2 holdings, I believe, on a kickoff return, an OPI. Like they stacked, and that showed sloppiness to me. We got a nice little stretch here in between this game and our next one, and I expect some of that sloppiness to get going.
That was Dan Quinn after the preseason game on Friday, not after training camp, not after practice. He's talking real football. We're talking real football. It's the Kevin Sheehan show. You will notice I am not Kevin. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin. The plan, Max, was that I was going to be in on the show on Thursday and Friday this week.
Yes, I remember seeing the schedule.
That is still the plan. I will be here on Thursday and Friday. I got a call late last night. Well, late for me is someone that wakes up at 4:30 and goes to bed at 9:30. I got a call late. I was in the shower. It was from Kevin, and I didn't answer it. I don't answer to anybody in the shower.
Yeah, 7:40 is late for you.
The only person that I want to talk to in the shower is my wife, Giggity. But I get a call from Kevin, and Kevin's like, yo. I'm like, hey, what's going on? He's like, I'm stuck in Florida. Can you sit in for me tomorrow? And I was like, yes, Kevin, I will do whatever you need to make the show go on. But what are people going to do without your preseason takes? And he said, Denton, it's the effing preseason. No one cares. And then he hung up the phone. And I was like, okay. We're still going to talk about the preseason. There are actually some things that took place in that game on Friday, Max, that I feel like are legitimate and things that need to be discussed as we move forward into preseason game number 2.
Absolutely.
And as we move forward into regular season game number 1, that is now less than a month away. But first, before we do any sort of preseason discussion, a little bit of housekeeping. The team 15 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago,
something like that,
they made some adjustments. And in those adjustments, they did some house cleaning, added some people, got rid of some people.
A lot of workouts yesterday.
And that means some people are now without jobs. Some people have jobs, but some people are without jobs. So the 3 guys that they signed, defensive back, Essang Bassey, I think it's Bassey.
Bassey sounds right.
Cornerback, played in Los Angeles. He is now here in D.C. Antonio Hamilton Sr., cornerback, he is now here in D.C. And linebacker Duke Riley, he is now here in D.C. Now, with bringing 3 players in, they got to send 3 players packing. One of the guys they sent packing was Alvin George, who I'd actually thought was halfway decent in some of the practices that I happened to watch when I have been at training camp, but he is now gone. A defensive end that most people are not going to be familiar with is now gone, but here is the big one. Dominique Hampton, who is a safety turned linebacker, drafted in 2024 in the 5th round, he is now gone. This is the big surprise, I think, to most people. I did not think that Dominique Hampton played exceptional in the preseason game. In fact, when we get to some of my major takeaways from the preseason game, he was on the naughty list. It always felt like he was a step or a step and a half behind plays. And in watching the game throughout the course of Friday night, I found myself asking, does this guy have NFL speed? Because it didn't feel like he had NFL speed. And
didn't
you can be a really high IQ player, but if you are playing defense at a linebacker position, you need to have speed. You need to have high IQ and speed. He had one of the two. I mean, I don't think he's a dumb player, but it just felt like he was always a step or a step and a half behind where the play needed to be made. And the difference in being a step slow could legitimately be a 2-yard gain versus a 15-yard gain. And eventually those are going to start to stack up. So it's not all that surprising, I would say, that he is gone. But I think the timing of it, he was on the roster for the entirety of last season, didn't play a ton. I think he might have played dressed in 3 games. He was constantly on. They send an email out before games, usually about an hour before kickoff, with inactives, and he was constantly on the inactive list, which means he clearly wasn't doing a ton on special teams, because if you can play teams you're going to be on the field, not playing special teams, and always seem to be a step or two slow when needed. Dunzo, the boot. Little bit of I don't know if this is a black mark, so to speak, or a stain on the name of Adam Peters, but Adam Peters was brought in because he was really good at finding fifth-round picks. Like, that was kind of the thing. We did this whole bit on the show. When he got hired, last year, a year ago and some change, we got hired. Kevin was like, find me all of the great fifth-round picks, or like fifth or later, right? Late-round picks that Adam Peters has capitalized on. And there were years in San Francisco and in Denver, and we're just going to by proxy put Adam Peters in charge of that, even though he wasn't officially in charge, but he was head of some of the scouting departments of those teams and head of the decision makers to the decision maker. He was the assistant to the general manager, right? He was the Dwight Schrute, but maybe with a little bit more power than Dwight Schrute. Well, that San Francisco 3-year stretch, there was a lot of guys that were drafted late in games or late in the draft that were still playing in the NFL. There were a lot of guys in the final years of Denver that were drafted late in drafts that are still playing in the NFL. So a little bit of a question mark over the head, being like, I thought this Dominic Hampton kid was going to be something. You drafted a lot of these guys because of their RAS score. How much time did we waste talking about the RAS score? You drafted him for the RAS score. He didn't look overly athletic when he was playing, and now he's gone because he can't play special teams. So a little bit of a tough pill to swallow. If he gets cut when they trim the roster from like 90 to 53, you can kind of shrug your shoulders and say, all right, like, hey, maybe it just wasn't in the cards. But getting cut now because they're like, we would much rather use this spot to see if somebody else can be better than you because we know you aren't all that good. That's a little bit of a tough pill to swallow there. So Dominic Hampton, Dunzo here in DC. That was not my biggest takeaway from the preseason. And we're not going to do a game take, so to speak. It does feel like a little bit of gimmick infringement. And quite honestly, I cannot give as good of a game take as Kevin would give. He is diabolical with some of his game takes, Max, as I'm sure I don't know if you've done a game take with him yet, actually.
Not yet. We're going to break that seal hopefully this season.
You will find out. He is diabolical with some of his game takes. But man, the penalties were tough. And
it was bad.
I'm glad you brought us in with that Dan Quinn clip. I might play it again here in a second just so everyone can hear it. But I'm watching this game, and it is a little over the top to have any like massive takeaways, like massive takeaways from a preseason game. The game does not count. You're kind of working some things out. You're not utilizing a whole lot of any sort of game plan that you would in a game that matters against a good team playing competent players. Not to say that New England wasn't, because they did have a lot of certainly their number ones on offense, not all of them, but a lot of their number ones on offense and a good amount of their number ones on defense. But the penalties were killer, man. And that's the thing where you could take the game plan stuff out. Like, the game plan stuff has no impact on penalties. Do you know when you're supposed to be snapping the football? Yes or no? That's pretty simple. Do you know that you're not allowed to grab people's face masks? Yes or no? That one's pretty simple. That Jeremy Reeves call was nonsense. That was a clean hit to me. I've seen all the replays. That was a clean hit. That's a football hit. The refs are a little trigger happy. Get that one out of your system in the preseason, because Lord knows if we have a call in the regular season that's similar to that one, and it ends up taking points off of the board, or God forbid puts points onto the board for an opposition in this kind of league, especially if you watched, last year, this was very much a team that won a lot of one-score games. If they start getting hit with penalties like that late into games, in meaningful games, is going to be a problem. But the penalties were just killer. That's a discipline thing. That's an IQ thing. And to see on the other side a team in New England that felt like talent-wise they were kind of whatever. Again, it's preseason, who cares? But from a discipline standpoint, they were sensational. And then you compare that to Washington, 13 penalties to 2. And the 2 penalties for New England came in the second half, when who cares about the second half of a preseason game like that? When you had guys playing for Washington that might actually get some sort of real playing time throughout the course of the season. Not a lot will, but guys that might get some real play time throughout the course of the season, to see them being the ones to commit a bunch of boneheaded and silly penalties, I don't know how they're going to make adjustments about this at practice this week, but I would anticipate there's going to be something, a ramp up of intensity, a ramp up of the coaches kind of getting on guys. It's all fun and games when you're coming off of a great season that you were last year, but you got to stay away from the press clippings, or in this case, the social media posts. I don't think anyone hangs press clippings anymore in today's day and age, but you got to stay away from the hype that is boiling up about your organization and about your team on social media, on your ESPNs, on this particular station, on our sister station that I'm looking at right across the hall. You got to take all the good things that are being said about you kind of out of your mind, and you got to lock in as if you are the team that was last year, because you just can't be making silly penalties, and you can't make that a consistent thing. It felt like during a lot of the portions of last year, this was a disciplined football team, and the operation that we saw on Friday was anything but discipline. So, Max, if you have that Dan Quinn quote, let's hear it one more time. You can kind of hear it in his voice how upset he was about what was happening.
Yeah, all three phases. I thought it was sloppy tonight. We had 15 penalties, and in different varieties. Pre-snap, 12 in a huddle, illegal formation. We had 2 holdings, I believe, on a kickoff return, an OPI. Like they stacked, and that showed sloppiness to me. We got a nice little stretch here in between this game and our next one, and I expect some of that sloppiness to get going.
I expect that sloppiness to be left in Foxborough. When we see this team again a week from today, taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, 13 penalties should not be the final stat when you pull up the box score. 13 penalties for 98 yards, that should not happen. And again, it's just little things. 12 guys in the huddle. That's a boneheaded decision. Somebody needs to know, hey, I should be in the huddle versus I should not be in the huddle. You can't have 12 guys on. Holding penalties are going to happen. That's honestly, that is at the discretion of the officials, because some guys are a little bit more lenient with them holding penalties, and there are other guys that are absolute sticklers when it comes to holding penalties. But the boneheaded ones, not being in the right formation, understanding what the snap count, like all of those things need to be left in the rearview mirror. The exciting part about the game that will be played next week is that you will see, at least for, I believe, probably a quarter, maybe a little bit more, you're going to see starters from the opposition. Cincinnati has kind of circled this one and said, we are going to play our guys. This is going to be the big one that they play. And they did play a little bit against Philadelphia. I think Burrow got 2 drives, and he led them on 2 touchdown drives. I mean, he's clicking. So you'll get to see that first-team offense versus hopefully significantly more first-teamers for Washington. I wouldn't expect Bobby Wagner. I wouldn't expect Von Miller. But the operation needs to be cleaned up, especially if you will have more first-team guys in. So even if it is only half on offense, half on defense, whatever, this operation needs to be cleaned up, because the 2s and the 3s and the 4s that got on the field on Friday against New England, 13 penalties, cannot happen again. It cannot. We will get to some big takeaways, because there were a couple players that I did think really shined. So we will get to some big takeaways coming up here shortly on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in. We'll take some of your calls at around 10:30 at 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980 on your thoughts of preseason game number 1 for Washington. But before we do that, Max, let's get to it. What do you got? The biggest storyline of this NFL weekend was Shedeur Sanders playing for the first time, starting for the Cleveland Browns, and playing pretty decent in his debut for the Cleveland Browns. 14 of 23, 138 yards, 2 touchdowns, couple throws that the NFL was really pushing hard. And wow, look at this. Look at the threading of the needle here. Oh my God, he's so patient. He's delivering, and he did. I thought the touchdown throws that he had were very good throws. Not spectacular, but very good throws at the NFL level. I really hope this guy ends up being something. Because if Shedeur Sanders ends up being nothing, Max, this weekend is going to be hilarious to look back on all of the people that were losing their minds on social media about a preseason game Nike dropped an advertisement about a preseason game. Do you know why they dropped that advertisement about a preseason game, Max? I think they were worried that they wouldn't be able to legitimately drop it during the regular season.
Don't care. I'm throwing my wrist in the air.
You're throwing your wrist in the air, showcasing, I got a Garmin on. You ain't got to watch on, but I got a Garmin on. I have never seen a guy get so hyped for the preseason the way that Shedeur is getting hyped. And look, he played well. There were some ones in the game for Carolina when he was in there too. So it's not like he was going up against 2s, 3s, and 4s. There were some ones sprinkled in there. But a Nike graphic after the preseason game talking about it's about damn time? I don't know that it's about damn time to be dropping that graphic, man. I hope Shedeur ends up being something, but that was a little too much. He had his whole, by the way,
he had his crew.
He had his crew, man.
They're rolling deep.
This might make me a little bit of an old man, but seeing that scenario makes me eternally grateful for Jaden Daniels. Because you know what Jaden Daniels did not have on preseason game number 1? An entire camera crew. You know what Jaden Daniels did not have in the NFC Championship game? An entire camera crew.
Jared Goff did, though.
You know Jared Goff did. You know what Jaden Daniels has not had at training camp this year? An entire camera crew.
He will at the end of this season, though. Shout out Hard Knocks.
I mean, Hard Knocks will be following him around, but they're going to be looking at other people too. These guys are true. This is for Shedeur Sanders. And look, man, go get your money. Go if you are profiting off of the camera crew and you're going to sell this, maybe get like a Facebook exclusive like Ball in the Family was. Shout out to everybody that knows what Ball in the Family is. I was
who could forget
normal watcher to Ball in the Family. Maybe Shedeur gets something out of that. But if I was the Cleveland Browns organization and their operation, I would look at him and say, can we take a little bit of a step back here? Like your QB number 4 right now on the depth chart. We got 5, so he's not last. But your QB 4 on the depth chart, can we maybe wait until you climb up the depth chart a little bit before we got the entire camera crew for a preseason game? His drip was crazy, though.
Looks great.
Compare his drip to Josh Connolly. If I was Josh Connolly right now, I'm about to be a total hypocrite because I was just blasting Shedeur for having like this huge network of people behind him. If I was Josh Connolly, I would get with my agent and get some sort of deal. Adidas, Nike, Reebok, whatever. If he doesn't have one, maybe he does. I would guess Nike because he went to Oregon. And I would get a t-shirt that says no drip, just ball. That's like perfect offensive lineman wear before a game because that man came in some team issued gear. He was holding his sneakers like he was in high school, and he was just ready. And he had like a plate of food.
He looked like Toby walking into work.
He looked like Toby Altizer walking into work. But he looked good, and then he went out and performed really, really well. And speaking of performing really, really well, he is one of my positive takeaways. I'll give you all of my positive takeaways, not a game take because I'm not Kevin. But I'm going to do my best to have as close to a game take as possible. My big takeaways from Washington's preseason game number 1 when we get back. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. was I about to do? Your calls on the preseason. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. We will get to them in about 15 minutes. We got a poll question up right now on the Team 980's Twitter page, at the Team 980. Who looked the best to you in the preseason? Who had the best showing? Johnny Newton, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, a.k.a. Bill, Josh Connerly, or other? Reply if you choose other. Don't just choose other. You got to tell us who the other is. Right now, Johnny Newton is very much ahead, but we'll allow some people to go and vote on that poll. We'll get Max's answer in just a second. It's time to do some takeaways, though. And look, it's the preseason. I'm not going to get too out of my skis here and be like, wow, I think Johnny Newton's going to be a Hall of Famer now. I'm not going to do that. Now, could he be a Hall of Famer? That is possible. I don't know. You know, there's a long career hopefully ahead of him, and hopefully all that career is here if he ends up being a Hall of Famer. But here's some of my takeaways from the preseason game number one. Who cares about the results? I don't. the Patriots whooped our ass. I don't really care. It's a bunch of 2s and 3s and guys that hopefully never actually play a game for Washington for a large majority of who were playing on Friday. So I don't really care what happened in like the third and fourth quarter. I barely care what happened in the second quarter. Outside of the penalties, I think the penalty speaks to a little bit of a larger issue of maybe not taking practice as seriously as practice needs to be taken. So that I think is a fair takeaway here. The biggest standout to me, though, was Johnny Newton, because Johnny Newton was going up against the ones for the Patriots. They played their offensive line, especially on the interior of their offensive line. How do we know this? Because you have to be the biggest imbecile, and Mike Vrabel is not. You have to be the biggest imbecile if you're going to trot your starting day one quarterback, the future of your franchise, Drake May, out behind number 2s on the offensive line. You're not going to do that. When Jaden Daniels plays in the preseason, which is hopefully going to be against Cincinnati, we will get more confirmation on that this week. When Jaden goes out there, he's not going to be playing behind the number 2s on the offensive line. You just don't do that. So Johnny Newton played against the number 1s for New England, and Johnny Newton was fantastic on defense. He's much more of a pass rusher than he is a run stopper. That's why the team signed Javon Kinlaw. Javon Kinlaw is a massive human being, and he is going to eat double teams, which will in turn open up space for Bobby Wagner, and then potentially, whether it be Johnny Newton or Daron Payne, give them single matchups and then allow them to go one-on-one against somebody, get off the block, get to the hole, make the stop, right? So Javon Kinlaw is going to be a run stuffer. Johnny Newton was not playing with Javon Kinlaw. Javon Kinlaw did not play. So on the run, he didn't look great. That's fine. Fair. In the pass rush, though, oh, Lord have mercy. In the pass rush, Johnny Newton was excellent. A really, really strong performance. He had the sack and what ended up being the strip sack, forcing a fumble. He was excellent. And there had been a lot of talk about Johnny Newton this offseason. Some positive, some maybe not so positive, because people were looking at what happened in 2024 and saying, well, he didn't pan out. He wasn't good. He wasn't good. The defensive line sucks. He wasn't very good. And admittedly, he was not sensational in 2024, but he also was hurt for the entire offseason. So now with a full offseason, healthy, and now a full offseason of understanding what it means to be a professional in the NFL, I have insanely high expectations for Johnny Newton. If what we saw in the preseason game was what we are going to get in the regular season, Johnny Newton is going to be an animal. And the combination, the 3-man weave of Javon Kinlaw, Daron Payne, and Johnny Newton could be a very, very dangerous combination for an offensive, or for a defensive unit, rather, a defensive line unit that on the interior in particular was kind of awful last year. So I didn't expect that Newton was going to ball out the way that he did against the Patriots number 1s, but he looked really, really sharp and really, really dominant in a way that we have not seen from that position since Daron Payne was up for a contract. I don't know that he's going to have 11.5 sacks this season. That's not what I'm getting at, but it was nice to see that he does have a little bit of dominance in him. And if we pair him up with guys that are actual number 1s, like a Kinlaw, like a Daron Payne, there could be something there with the Johnny Newton hype. I really, really loved what I saw from Johnny Newton. Number 2 on the takeaways that are positive. The hype for Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is going to be insane, Max. It already was crazy. It already was. It is not going to slow down anytime in the near future.
It shouldn't. Those cuts he was making something out of nothing, and it was very impressive.
There was some real vision there with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. And there was some real getting skinny, as they say.
Yeah.
In fitting his way through the hole. You look at his numbers, 7 carries, 24 yards. That's not going to jump off of the page at you. It doesn't have to. I don't really care. Again, stats in the preseason, not much. But just seeing the way that he ran with a violence that it feels like we have not seen here in a little bit.
Runs like Pacheco.
With his awareness of finding the hole, attacking the hole, but then his peripheral vision to cut when needed. is something we really haven't seen in a long time. It's a combination of violent running, but legitimate agility that he has that is not possessed by another running back on the roster. And if we're honest with ourselves, a main reason why we care so much, or why we are so, as fans, hype about Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, is because a lot of us are kind of done with Brian Robinson in some capacity or another. Had really high hopes for him in 2024. He did not live up to those high hopes in 2024. And now people are kind of mostly indifferent about what he is going to be on this team, understanding that he's likely not going to be back next year, because you're not going to shell out a lot of money to a running back that you don't think is very good. And he had all the reasons to be good last year, and he still couldn't get over 1,000 yards. He still couldn't have that Alfred Morris-esque season that Alfred had with Robert in his first year. It might be a little unfair to think that Brian Robinson was going to go for 1,200 just playing next to Jane Daniels for the first time, but we thought he was going to be better than he was. And towards the end of the season, there are points and times where it felt like Brian Robinson was leaving a lot on the field. So that is a major reason as to why we are so infatuated with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, because he does some things that Brian Robinson does not do, that a majority of us have been wanting Brian Robinson to do for years. And it feels like Bill is a much better natural at some of those things. Like, he plays the running back position very naturally. There's an ease with him. It's like this weird combination. It's a perfect combination, but it's a weird combination of ease and violence. You don't normally get those two things. But he's so easy at playing the position, and then he runs with a violence and a speed and agility that we have not really seen. So the hype for him is only going to continue to get higher and higher and higher. He's still not going to be the day one starter. Brian Robinson is not going to get cut, but Bill is going to make this roster. I always thought that he was going to make the roster. I did not imagine that he was not going to make the roster, but he is going to make the roster, and he's going to kind of twist the arm of the decision makers a little bit, because there's no chance he makes it to the practice squad. It's just not going to happen, which means McNichols and Chris Rodriguez, they are likely going to be guys that they release and say, I really hope that you're here for the practice squad, unless they decide to keep 4 running backs. I can't imagine they're keeping 4 running backs, although some of these guys do play special teams, which is you can justify potentially keeping 4 if they all play special teams. But the hype for Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is only going to get higher and higher. Number 3, Josh Connolly Jr. was really, really good. How do I know that Josh Connolly Jr. was really, really good? Because he was not talked about at all. When you are a rookie right tackle playing in your first preseason game, you're not going to get like Shedeur Sanders hype, understood. But you should be mentioned a lot more than he was. And he wasn't mentioned, which means the commentators did not have a reason to mention him. And trust me, if he had sucked, they would have mentioned him, and he did not. He did his job. He handled his business. It had been a little bit of an up and down kind of training camp for him. You're learning a new position. This is natural. It's going to happen with rookies in the NFL. You're learning a new position. He played left tackle in college. They're moving him to right tackle because you have Laramie Tunsil at left tackle, and you're not moving him off of the left side. So he's learning a new position. He's going up against much better athletes. Now, he played in the Big Ten, so the Big Ten did have good athletes along the defensive line, but he's going up against much better athletes. There had been some up and down days in the preseason or in training camp, but on Friday, he looked really, really good. And if you want to care about Pro Football Focus grades, he graded 77.7 in run blocking. Having a right tackle that likes to block in the run game is crucial. Wiley was good last year. He wasn't great. Well, maybe Wiley was fine last year. He certainly wasn't great. Maybe you could argue good. But if Connolly, who eventually is going to take over that spot, don't know if he's going to be starting week 1. I don't think it's a huge issue if he is not starting week 1, but he will eventually take over that spot. He played really, really well in his first action in the preseason game. Trey Amos also looked really good. He wasn't thrown to a ton. I would have really liked if New England tried to test Trey Amos a little bit more, just to kind of see. You know, it's one thing to see him perform at a high level in training camp when there's no Terry and no Noah Brown. You get occasional matchups with Deebo Samuel, but for the most part, you're going up against guys that at best are wide receiver 4 on this roster, and on other rosters might be wide receiver 5 in some instances. So it's kind of hard to tell how good he is when he's going up against the guys that are in camp now with Terry and Noah not being participants. but I thought he looked pretty good in the limited amounts of times that we saw the ball come his direction in preseason game number 1. I'm excited about him. I think that defensive backfield is so much better than it was last year. Noah, who was number 3 as a corner last year, is now like number 5. And he was I thought Noah was a pretty decent number 3 last year, Max. He's like a really good number 5. If he's your 5th option, you feel really good about the 4 guys that are ahead of him in that depth chart. Ja'Cory Brooks played really well. I would have liked to see him play maybe a little bit earlier, so you see him get work against some 2s and maybe like a 1 in there, although they didn't play a lot of their 1s on defense, did New England. But he looked really good. Tay Martin also really shined, I thought, at the wide receiver spot. I was hoping we'd see a lot more from Jalen Lane. We did not. I was hoping we'd see a lot more from Luke McCaffrey. We did not. I think that was by design. Those 2 guys feel like their position is cemented on the roster, at least for sure. Jalen Lane is, because you're not going to draft a guy in the 3rd round and then immediately turn around and cut him. That's not going to happen. So Jalen Lane feels pretty good, and I would imagine that Luke McCaffrey is on this roster as well. So you already have 5 wide receivers on this roster, with Noah Brown, Debo, and Terry being the other 5, because yes, Terry is going to be on the roster week 1, and he's going to be playing for the Commanders in week 1. Will he have a new contract? I don't know, but he's going to be playing for the team in week number 1. So you already have 5 wide receivers. If you keep 6, that means 1 slot is open. If you keep 7, obviously that would mean 2 slots are open. I wanted to see a little bit more from Luke and Jalen, just to kind of see what is being worked with here and what you can realistically expect. Really, I just don't want to waste all my money again betting Luke McCaffrey anytime touchdowns, Max.
I think we're Jalen Lane.
I think so.
We'll discuss.
Yeah, I'm still going to bet Luke McCaffrey week 1.
I probably will.
Like, I'm gonna bet it until it doesn't happen, because the one time I don't bet it, it's gonna happen.
That's the one. Yeah.
So like, I just have to be locked in for the ride.
Got to be consistent. Keep
those were my biggest positive takeaways. There were some negative takeaways. I will get to those when we get back, and then it will be your turn. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. What were your biggest takeaways from preseason game number 1 for the Commanders in their loss to New England? Your calls coming up. My negative takeaways when we get back. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Dente sitting in for Kevin on the Team 980.
All right. Happy Monday, everybody. The Washington Commanders have announced a roster update following their first preseason loss to the New England Patriots. They have released DN Viliami Fehoko Jr., cornerback Alan George, and linebacker Dominique Hampton as well. They have signed former Dolphin linebacker Duke Riley, corners Asong Bassi, and Antonio Hamilton Sr., who all worked out after practice yesterday with the team. The Mystics, they win 91-78. Kiki Ariafin notches her 10th double-double on the year. Some entertainment news, UFC pay-per-views are no more. The UFC has reached a 7-year, $7.7 billion deal with Paramount to air fight nights on Paramount+. And number UFC events will be available for free on CBS. The Nats, they wrap up their weekend series with the Giants in an 8-0 win. Mackenzie Gore had a great outing with 6 innings pitched and 10 strikeouts, only giving up 1 walk. CJ Abrams with the lone homer, but the bat stayed hot for the Nats as they earned 17 hits throughout the game. Tonight, they will take on the Kansas City Royals. Cade Cavalli is the expected starter. First pitch at 7:40. Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave at 7:10. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1 and Craig Hoffman from 4 to 7. Don't forget to like the stream and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Dent Day sitting in for Kevin here. Kevin will be back on Tuesday. Just had a flight situation, so he couldn't make it to do the show today. Your calls on the preseason coming up here in about 10 minutes. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. I gave some positive takeaways. It is time for some negative takeaways now. The first one is obvious, Max. You saw it. I saw it. Everybody saw it. Thank God Sam Hartman is hot, because when it comes to playing quarterback, that performance was anything but hot.
Yeah, I think that shoulder surgery is still lingering. I know Cliff said it earlier in the offseason, but it definitely showed itself last night. There was no zip. There was no drive on that ball. None. He wasn't putting them in there. He was floating them. It just did not look good.
I mean, he threw a duck on a screen.
Yeah.
And the second he threw a duck on a screen, he should have been pulled from the game. Like, hey, man, like tonight's not it. The shoulder is still clearly an issue. I don't know if they have seen something in practice that suggests the shoulder is healthy, and then all of a sudden it just disappeared during the game. But in just watching Sam, because I don't think he's a bad player, but in watching Sam Hartman, he was not it. Like, the offense was, I don't have hair, but I was pulling my hair out in watching that. I don't know if it's because he cut his hair. You know, I would think that Sam Hartman, who at the very least spent a semester on campus at Notre Dame, would have learned about the tale of Samson. You know, don't cut your hair, keep the hair going, and all of your strength is going to come through the hair. I guess maybe he skipped that Bible class that day, Old Testament, but the hair must have done something, man. I mean, he was not what we had hoped he was going to be. And considering that there is a legitimate battle of sorts as to a third quarterback on this roster, there's no Jeff Driscoll. So he is not going to be the savior. He's not going to break through the glass like Stone Cold Steve Austin. I don't know if they're keeping three. Johnson, I thought, looked fine. Johnson's like 40 years old at this point. Like, he was drafted the same draft as Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Jackson is now coaching at I think it's Delaware State, where D-Jax is coaching. So a lot of the guys that he was drafted in are now gone to career number 2. I don't know if you feel exceptional about him being quarterback 3, although you might be able to get Josh Johnson onto the practice squad. But if you're nearly 40 years old, are you going to want to be a practice squad player? I don't know. But I don't think that Sam Hartman is going to be quarterback 3 after that particular performance. Negative takeaway number 2, the linebackers left a lot to be desired. And there's a big reason why Dominique Hampton is not on the roster anymore. If you missed that, literally 15 minutes before the show, the team put out a statement. Dominique Hampton, one of 3 commanders who was released. So what they saw from him on Friday was clearly bad, to a point where they said, we don't think this is going to get better. And we think we can go and find somebody else out there who can do what you are doing better. Him getting cut is not surprising. Him getting cut as quickly as he did is surprising. That is maybe a little bit of credit to Adam Peters for not trying and forcing to make something work, recognizing when it's not working, it's not working. We need to move forward. There's no ego attached to it. He doesn't care about looking bad. And I do think it looks a little bad that a guy that you drafted in the 5th round because of a crazy RAS score, which is all the talk of last year's draft, did not look athletic on the field. Maybe there was an injury that he was nursing, but it's not like he played a lot last year. He was constantly on the inactives last year. He got a good opportunity to play a lot of snaps in preseason game number 1, and every single time he was on the field, it looked like he was a step or 2 behind the play. And if you're a step or 2 behind the play, especially on like a run play, that's a difference of maybe a gain of 2 yards versus a gain of 15 yards. Because you're supposed to be the second level, you're a step or 2 behind. Boom, he is now past the linebackers, and now it's up to the guys in the defensive backfield to make a tackle on a running back. It's a bad performance from him. He is not around anymore. He is gone. Kane Moderno, they're going to have a little bit more leniency, I think, with him. I don't think he was spectacular. Maybe if you go back and watch film, it'll tell a different story. But he didn't feel as spectacular as I thought he was going to be. Likely going to be a guy that plays heavily on special teams, I think, for the first couple weeks of the season. I was just really bummed with that because I'd heard a lot of really good things about the linebackers. I had seen a lot of good things about the linebackers. And keep in mind, a lot of these dudes are getting pretty significant reps in training camp because Bobby Wagner isn't getting a ton of them. There's a lot of veteran rest days in the way that Dan Quinn operates, which at least last year proved to be a very positive thing. We'll see how that transitions into the year of our Lord 2025. But because Bobby Wagner isn't getting a ton of reps defensively in training camp, it does present an opportunity for a lot of other linebackers to get reps. I was hoping that Kane Moderno and Dominic Hampton were going to be a lot better than they were going up against real competition, and they just weren't. And again, that's why Hampton is now, he's a free agent. He gets to go test the waters elsewhere and see if the safety turned linebacker can find his footing somewhere else. He's now donezo. He's out of here. Chris Moore also had a really tough day. You know, Chris Moore, lot of drops. And
a lot of drops.
One of them was, man, like, that's a tough catch, but as a pro, you should probably make that catch. You know, going to the ground, not your first rodeo, tuck the ball, squeeze the ball, all those things, right? That was the second drop. That first drop was bad. First drop was awful. And like, as bad as Sam Hartman played, that one wasn't on him.
No.
That would, like, you are the receiver. You have to catch that ball.
Square in the hands.
Especially as your quarterback is kind of struggling to get into a rhythm that's early in the football game. He's a young guy. He's coming off surgery. You're fighting for a spot on the roster. We talked about it. There are 5 slots solidified with this roster unless they do something crazy and cut Luke McCaffrey. I can't imagine that's going to happen. Terry, Debo, Noah, Luke McCaffrey, Jalen Lane. All of those spots are solidified. They're not going to cut Jalen Lane. It's not going to happen. So you got 5 wide receivers that are already accounted for. If you keep 6, there's 1 slot. If you keep 7, there are 2 slots. There's a lot of guys fighting for those 1 or 2 slots. I would say it's probably more in the direction of 1. I think they start with 6 wide receivers and then maybe try and squeeze 1 or 2 of these guys onto the practice squad. I feel pretty confident that a guy like Tay Martin would make it to the practice squad. He has been a perennial practice squad player. Do you know he was drafted in like 2021? Like,
really?
He's been in the NFL for a long, long time. It was either 21 or 22, but he's been in the NFL for a long, long time. He's just a perennial practice squad guy. He's played like 1 NFL game. It was last year for Tennessee.
Good money
when they had all of the injuries. I mean, he's made a decent living. Like,
yeah.
Northern Virginia is not a terrible place to live if you're getting a pretty decent paycheck and you're not getting destroyed on a weekly basis. But he's a perennial practice squad guy. You could probably get Ja'Cory Brooks on the practice squad. Maybe, maybe not. But if that's the difference between like a Chris Moore and a Ja'Cory Brooks, who do you think you can get on the practice squad? I feel pretty comfortable you could get Chris Moore on the practice squad, which means they would take Ja'Cory Brooks over a Chris Moore. Gallup would be the other guy in that conversation that could make things a little unique, so to say, because he is a veteran. He has the Dallas ties with Dan Quinn and Joe Witt, although he's an offensive guy. They're defensive guys, but you understand he knows the coaching staff. You have at least 3 or 4 guys that are competing for maybe 2 spots. And for Chris Moore, who had a good opportunity on Friday to be a guy that really shined, he didn't take it. And that's bummer. That's a bummer, man. He should have really helped his quarterback out, which in turn would have really helped the offense out. And then maybe, just maybe, we would have seen a little bit more scoring for Washington and a little bit more of Ja'Cory Krosky merit. Because in the killing of the drives with Chris Moore, it felt like they were like, all right, we're going to play Bill for X amount of drives. If those drives aren't long, that's it. That's our plan. We're not going to adjust from it. We're not going to deviate from what is going on with the plan. So I was really bummed at Chris Moore because he had, in minicamp, he looked really, really good. That was when the Terry stuff was all new, right? You know, we thought that Terry would be here by training camp, so we're like watching but not really watching, and he kind of stood out in those practices. And even now that we know this Terry saga is becoming a massive debacle that is going entirely too long. I mean, we're like nearly midway through August. I'd say, when does the middle of the month start? Probably like the 12th, right? When it's August 12th, you can say we're midway through the month.
I think so. I mean, 30 days. If you're in like within 3 days of the 15th, I can say halfway, like midway through.
Midway. So tomorrow we are midway through August, and Terry McLaurin has still not been signed. I thought he was going to get signed before training camp even started. This debacle is going on a little too long.
Has that panic meter gone up, by the way?
little bit, not a lot of it, but a little bit, because there's clearly something going on there.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that a little bit more, but I just wanted to talk real football first, so people would stop being mean to me on social media.
Of course. I mean, it's been a long road for all of us.
It's been a long road. Like the summer of Terry McLaurin is nonstop right now, and I would like it to stop. I would just like please, Penn hit paper.
Adam Peters, Buddy Baker, I beg you.
Even if Penn doesn't hit paper, just get out there and practice. I mean, for the love of all that is holy, just get out there and practice. Anyway, I thought Chris Moore was going to be better than he was, and to see him have really good practices and then really kind of shrink in the game and not help his quarterback out was a massive, massive bummer. All right, when we get back, it's your turn. 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980. Positive takeaways from the preseason opener. Negative takeaways from the preseason opener. Your phone calls. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Dende sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. This is the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin at the Denton Day on Twitter. Kevin is back tomorrow. He just had flight issues this weekend, so he'll be back in tomorrow and Wednesday, and then is your boy on Thursday and Friday. We're taking your calls right now. Biggest positive and negative takeaway from preseason game number 1 for Washington. We have a poll up on our Twitter at the Team 980. Who shined the brightest? Johnny Newton, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Josh Connerly, or other, with a reply. Most people that are selecting other, Max, to no surprise,
one name,
Ja'Cory Brooks.
Yep.
Which is to be expected. People have very much loved Bill Merritt, and they have very much loved Ja'Cory Brooks over the course of this offseason. I don't know what it is. I know what it is about Merritt. Everyone kind of done with Brian Robinson, so they want to see Bill Merritt perform well. I don't really know what it is with Ja'Cory Brooks outside of Terry not being there.
Anytime you come out, you got a guy who was at Alabama and then transferred and had a pretty great year away from Alabama. Everyone's going to look at that guy and be like, I think he's got something.
Like, he is, sign him up, Ring of Fame, destined. Yep. Before I get to the phones, your biggest positive and negative takeaways from preseason game number 1.
Man, I had a list of just kind of notes. Sam Hartman was a yikes for me. I mean, we kind of talked about it. So the one thing that I am going to be monitoring throughout this preseason, the running back situation, because Jeremy McNichols, he should make the roster, given what I, kind of saw. But at the same time, Bill has shown that he is the shiftiest and quickest back that we have in that room. So it's going to be very interesting to see kind of what they do there, because we got B-Rob and Eckler for one more year, and then kind of see where we go from there. Johnny Newton, like we said, looked great. Trey Amos was unnoticeable. Yeah. That's complimentary.
Newton is so good. They got one with him.
I'm so excited, especially after last year with the double foot surgery. Like, that was always going to set him back and have, he's going to have a down rookie year no matter what, setting him up, not for failure, but just for a slower start. One guy I did notice a lot on the field, Tay Martin. He was getting open a lot and making a lot of catches that I thought were pretty consistent.
Yeah, there was some nuance there to his route running, some shiftiness that I thought was really on display. Now, you're going up against, 2s and 3s,
of course,
but moving forward, I would be curious to see how they look at how he performed and then maybe adjusting some of the reps he gets and moving him up in preseason game number 2 to maybe go up against the 2s. So over Chris Moore. Chris Moore got a lot of reps going up against the 2s, maybe over Chris Moore, and say, all right, like, hey, you earned it. You played really well. You caught the ball. It's pretty important for wide receivers to do. You caught the football. Let's see if we can get you some more reps. All right, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I thought Tay Martin looked really good as well.
I like Tay a lot. The big negative takeaway, I think, for the entirety of the game was penalties and depth quarterback play. So after Mariota, it gets a little scary, but who knows? It's a fluid situation. Oh, one thing that we haven't mentioned is something that people have been talking about quite a bit. Matt Gay didn't look incredible.
Not great.
But Dan Quinn says that they haven't brought in a kicker yet. They didn't try anybody out yesterday. Did say it was a fair question though. So Matt Gay, that seat might be getting a little warm.
Not great. And there was salt on the wound when this kid in Jacksonville hit a 70-yarder.
70 yards.
A would-be NFL record. Preseason accomplishments don't count.
It'd have been good from 73 though.
It would be an NFL record. They just grow on trees everywhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, Washington cycled through like 17 in the past 2 years, and everyone else is just finding their guys.
It's better.
Sucks.
Kicker purgatory is better than quarterback purgatory. It's still not great, but
it is. But I'd like to be in heaven.
I agree.
Like if I could dodge all versions of purgatory, I would like to dodge all versions. How many rosaries do I have to pray to get out of purgatory? Please, somebody give me the answer. All right, 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Your biggest positive and maybe negative takeaways from preseason game number 1. Let's go to the 757. Paulie is on the line. Paulie, were you at the Clips concert last night in Virginia Beach?
L to the W. No, I wasn't out there, man. I was out there, but I wasn't out there. If you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
But I'm gonna say this, man. Listen, I was just telling Max, like, man, we need to chill out, calm down on the Bill guy, man, because I'm coming off a NFC Championship season. I'm looking at the players that's actually going to help us. And I'm not saying Bill ain't going to help us, but right now, he's sitting behind Jeremy McNichols. You know, I can count on Jeremy McNichols. Like, you've seen the difference when Jeremy McNichols got in the game the other night. Like, he's playing at a different level from everybody else, you know. So, and you know, you could count on him on as a first down back, third down back, special teams. Like, come on, take it back to Cincinnati when he threw that big block on that touchdown pass to Terry on the blitz in the fourth quarter. You know, so I know everybody's excited over Bill, and you know, but he ain't gonna just come in and take the number one spot. It's not gonna happen. So can he contribute on the team on special teams or you know, I can't count on Bill right now in one preseason game against guys who will be working at Subway in 3 weeks. You know, and so and the same thing goes. I like Ja'Cory Brooks, you know, okay, and all that, but is he gonna see the field? Honestly.
No, Brooks saying, like, the Brooks story, Paulie, is fun because, as Max mentioned, he went to Bama and he played really well at Louisville. So everyone's like, yes, we love him.
I'm looking at what's going to help us win games. Who are the players who's actually going to get on that field and help us win games? And right now, you know, to me, I like what I saw out of Jeremy McNichols. Really, I thought he was the best player on offense for us. You know,
so hold on. Let me real quick. If you're not in on Bill, what if he plays really well against Cincinnati? Like, what does he need to do in the preseason to shift that mindset?
I am in on Bill, but everybody out like he's about to come in and be Saquon Barkley. All right, that's not gonna happen right away. Like, he should just come in and get time ahead of McNichols or Eckler or Robinson. You know, right now Bill is fighting with Rodriguez. And we seen today. And one thing I learned today, they're not scared to cut a draft pick.
They are not.
You know, so I'm just saying, the thing is, we're going to keep 4 running backs or 4 tight ends. I think that's what and we also got to remember, man, this is just opening day roster. That roster is going to change. It's going to fluctuate.
Right. It'll change. I mean? Paulie, I appreciate it. You do bring up a very good question, though. 4 running backs versus 4 tight ends. That feels like it's going to be, as we get closer to cutdown day, a really big point of contention because you have on one hand Zach Ertz, John Bates, for sure, definitively. Ertz is a really great guy for Jaden Daniels. John Bates just signed an extension in March, so they signed somebody to an extension from last year's roster. Then you have Ben Sinnott and Colson Yankoff. Colson Yankoff, one of the great names in the NFL, but has also been a pretty decent player in the opportunities that he has gotten. Ben Sinnott was drafted because he had a really high RAS score, and he played at Kansas State, played well at Kansas State. He had that big catch in the NFC Championship game from Tress Way. There were some positives, certainly, for a guy like Ben Sinnott last year, but it has felt like we should be seeing a little bit more. I thought at the end of last year, not knowing what Zach Ertz was going to be like, not knowing how good Zach Ertz was going to be last year, I was under the assumption that Ben Sinnott was going to play a much larger role offensively for Washington in 2024. The fact that he did not, and he hasn't exactly been a massive shining star in training camp this year, does leave me a little worried. I don't know that his spot is in jeopardy, so to speak, but I think it's a little bit more in jeopardy than most people would tend to believe. So that is going to be a really interesting conversation because they're not going to keep 4 of each, right? They're going to keep 3 tight ends more likely than not and 4 running backs. That's how I would see it because you get those running backs. The nice thing about McNichols, about Chris Rodriguez, and about Bill is that all 3 of them can play special teams, whereas I don't know that you're going to run Ben Sinnott down on special teams. And if he's not good enough offensively to separate from a Colson Yankoff, who also plays special teams, like you're not going to preserve a roster spot for that. So that is going to be a really, really fascinating thing to examine as we get closer. The second preseason game where I think we'll see a lot more of the starting lineup is where we will start to see that. I don't imagine you'll see Zach Ertz in preseason game number 2, but who do they put out there as that tight end? Is it John Bates? Is it going to be Yankoff? Is it going to be Ben Sinnott as your pass-catching tight end and a third and presumptively a third and medium, third and long if one of those are to occur? Maybe Jaden Daniels doesn't get him to a third down. I don't know. But I think that's going to be a very fascinating question there, Paulie. So I think that's a good question. Little is in DC. Little's on the line. Little, whoa, we got music going on. Little, what's going
Little
on?
put
here?
us on hold.
Yeah, hold on, Double D. Let me.
All right, though, with the
That
Max,
was,
let me know when he is off of the phone. I love elevator music as much as everybody else, but I can't get elevator music back in my ear. That's not how this works here on the radio. Was he in an elevator? Was he at the dentist office? Like, where is he where he is getting the hold music? Little, you back with us with no hold music. I like smooth jazz, but I wasn't.
I got you, man. I was on the line with a lawyer trying to get into me, man. Look, let me give a shout out to Mad Max. Hey, look, man, I'm gonna tell you now. I'm gonna pick it. I know I'm glad Paulie off the line because he probably know who I'm talking about. This kid Bill remind me of a running back we had. We call him Go-Go. I'm gonna challenge the callers to see if they knew who I'm talking about. But look, let me say this though. Number 22 still got a job. He should have got cut. He shouldn't even got on the plane. He out there playing tag, man. Come on, man. That's what I'm saying. Look, this next thing I'm gonna tell you who flourished to me. That running back number 25 flourished in the tackle. But look, it ain't all over with yet, man, Max. We still got a little time left. Terry might sign that thing. But look, this is what I'm hearing. I'm hearing they offered him 29.5. And he's still standing pat for 30. That's crazy, man. Come on up in here.
Wait, do you have a hold on? Do you have a source for that, Little, or are you just throwing 29.5?
Yeah, man.
He's been throwing that out there for a couple weeks.
They offered him 29.5. He's still standing pat. But I think what's going to make a move if they go up on the guaranteed money.
Listen, man,
Hey,
if they're squabbling over $500,000, then just give him the $500,000.
Well, if they're squabbling over $500,000, that makes this whole fiasco look significantly worse.
Much worse.
You know, it's justified if it's 23 versus 30 in your terrorist camp saying, hey, I'd like 7 million more, please. And they're like, no, we're not going to give you that. That's okay. If it's, hey, I'd like 500,000 extra, you're like, go do another Eastern Motor shoot. I mean,
that's a workout bonus, brother.
Yeah, like we'll hook you with the Paisanos ad if you need it. Like we can put you in a Bud Light commercial with Shane Gillis if you really want to. Like we have all these connections to get you that. I don't think they're squabbling over $500,000. He's been all. If that ends up being the contract, by the way, Little's going to take a massive victory lap. And if he's been saying that for 29.5 million, if he's been saying that for weeks, he deserves that victory lap. But it's going to be a massive victory lap if that ends up being the deal. We are going to talk about Terry, by the way. Based off. Oh yeah. Because we are getting to the point now where this is the fun and games are kind of over. Like this has now become legitimately obnoxious. How long this is going. So we will get to that. But we're taking your calls 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. How did you feel about preseason game number 1? Who stood out to you positively? Who stood out to you negatively? Little mentioned Kaz Allen. He's who wears number 22. For those that don't know the roster, upwards, backwards, front, sideways, whatever. Kaz Allen wears 22. Kaz Allen has been a preseason hero in this town for a very, very long time. I don't know that he will ever make the roster, at least for a week 1 team. He's fast, though, and he scored a lot of touchdowns in high school. That's pretty much what his saving grace is right now. End of list. He's not all that great on teams. There are other guys that are better than him on teams. That Kaz Allen experience has been going on for years, man. And I don't know if it's stopping anytime soon. Lap is in DC. Lap, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, man? How's it going? I like Bill for sure. Hartman, man, he can go. He looked like some trash out there, man. And I wanted to see what's the kid from Virginia, the 6'5" receiver, Michael. Is it Stratton?
Strachan.
Yeah, I've seen him in a couple of games. I think with the Colts and the Chargers, man. Like he's made some big catches, but I thought they were going to give him some more playing time. And I'm agreeing with Paulie. I want to see how that tight end and running back thing is going to go. You know, if you keep 4 or 5, but I don't know. Maybe Gallup or KJ Osborne might get the last 2 of the receiver spots if we go 6 or 7. But I guess we got to see, man, because we really need to get Terry out there because I'm not really impressed with the receivers right now. Even though that other kid, I think Brooks, he looked pretty good, but we gonna see. And the kicker scared me too. Didn't I don't, man. We We can't have that, man. That kicker situation is sensitive, bro. We can't have a heart attack. We need a good kicker. So they got to figure that out.
Lap,
We'll
I
see, bro.
appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah, Strachan was the guy he was talking about. He played at Charleston. He's from Virginia, though. You know what I'm realizing right now, Max, is I'm looking up information about Strachan. I think I called his high school games. I'm just realizing that in real time. He played at Liberty Christian Academy in Lynchburg, which is kind of like an offset to Liberty University, which is where I went to school. So I'm pretty sure I called some of his high school games.
Any memorable moments?
Well, seeing as I'm just now realizing that.
Yeah, probably not.
Not quite. Not to say, I mean, he's obviously a good player. He's in the
Of
NFL,
course.
but that completely went over my head there. Yes, the kicking situation is a bad one. It is not good. I routinely forget that KJ Osborne is on this roster. I see him all of the time. They have so many wide receivers that are just like fine, but no one that is separating themselves from the pack. If you go out to practice right now with Terry not out there, with Noah Brown not out there, it's Deebo Samuel, massive gap, and then everybody else. It doesn't matter if you're Lane, McCaffrey, Strawn, KJ Osborne, Michael Gallup, Chris Moore, Ja'Cory Brooks. I mean, you name a wide receiver, it doesn't matter who they are. The gap between Deebo and everybody else who's practicing right now is very, very wide. I've been waiting for somebody to step up and close that gap, and it feels like nobody is stepping up and closing that gap. I was hoping that somebody would in the second preseason game. As good as Ja'Cory Brooks played, I don't know that he played well enough to like really drastically close that particular gap. So I've been waiting for somebody to step up in the wide receiver room, and no one is doing so. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Your thoughts on the preseason game number 1, positive takeaways, negative takeaways. Tom is on the line. Tom, you're on 980. What's going on?
Hey, good morning. Hey, I just want to take exception to your analysis of Brian Robinson.
Sure.
I think that in a vacuum, when you look at it, it's almost like you're assessing it like you're playing Madden. I think that to just with broad strokes paint him as somewhat of a failure last year doesn't even come close to taking into consideration how poorly the line played, how poorly the line was constructed, and the injuries that were played. It almost reminds me of 2002 when Chris Samuels played the whole year on a bad ankle. And I remember a commentator in the offseason commenting about how his play had dropped off to a certain level, but not taking into account how this guy manned up every game to play with that bum ankle. And I think when you take into consideration different injuries Brian Robinson had and then the condition of the offensive line, I think it's a really poor assessment to take a broad stroke and paint Brian Robinson as some kind of lackluster producer last year when football is the ultimate team game.
So Tom, let me ask you this. What changed from the beginning of the year to the end of the year? Because Brian Robinson was really good, and then at the end of the year, it felt like he was not running in the holes. Is that just, are you just blaming that all on the offensive line?
100%. I mean, it's like we all know that the offensive line was degraded as the year went on. The offensive line was a huge issue the whole season. That's why it was a priority this offseason again. And I think that to assess a running back simply with one broad stroke denigrates the player unfairly. I think look, if you get great offensive line play and you can run the ball effectively and your defense can stop the run, offensive coordinators get silly and all of a sudden wide receivers get wide open and you're playing pitch and catch. And that's why football is the ultimate team game. It starts on the offensive line and the defensive line, and it all spins off from there. I just think it's unfair to not take into consideration game by game the denigration of the offensive line, the substitutes, the switches, the continuity that was lacking on the offensive line, and then you put a running back there that, you get big ups during the season when you're playing nicked and hurt, and all of a sudden, like, here it is 9 months later, and you're like denigrated.
Tom, I appreciate it. Here's the issue: is like as the season progressed, outside of that one game or that little stretch where Dieter was in for Biotish, and when Dieter was in for Biotish, look, no one was blaming Brian Robinson. That offensive line with Dieter versus Biotish was very, very different. But everybody else seemingly had halfway decent games with that offensive line. Chris Rodriguez still played well. McNichols still played well. I'm not saying they were perfect last year, but I'm not going to blame everything on them. and none of it on Brian Robinson, when it felt like, as you were watching games, you're like, man, it feels like he is missing the hole where it should be. He's like a gap off almost every single time. And then on top of that, the explosivity, he's never been a home run guy. That's not his style. They didn't draft him to be a home run guy, so that's not anything that's negative about him. He's not that guy. You have certain guys that are, hey, go get 4 or 5 yards, which generally he has been that, although at the end of last year he was not. But he's never been like your home run guy. He's not the Saquon speed or anything like that. They didn't ask him to be that. Look, man, I just don't think he was as good as he needed to be. I think if Brian Robinson was excellent last year, then this team would have, the offense was already spectacular, but a lot of the burden would have came off of the shoulders of Jaden Daniels. And I think Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt can do some things that could elevate the offense that Brian Robinson cannot do. Brian Robinson is not going to get cut. I've not said that. He's going to be your day one starter. He should be your day one starter, but eventually this is a phasing out. They're not going to pay him likely what he is going to demand. He's not going to demand top dollar, certainly, but whatever he is going to demand, this does not seem like an operation that is going to pay a running back that is not incredibly productive, and also is not incredibly productive out of the backfield, which Brian Robinson last year was not. He was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, he was arguably the second best player on offense behind Terry McLaurin. Last year, he was not. So his production took a dip last year. If you want to blame the offensive line, fine, but his production took a dip last year. And seeing as they're in a contract standoff with Terry right now, who was very productive last year, they're going to do the same thing to Brian Robinson. This is a phasing out of what he is on the team to what they are hoping either Bill, McNichols, or whoever they end up drafting or signing next offseason is going to be for years to come. That's just how this organization operates. All right, in 15 minutes, Liam Griffin from the Washington Times. Ben Standy's going to join us at noon. Coming up next, though, The Athletic ran a poll with general managers, coaches, executives on the quarterbacks. Where did Jaden Daniels fall in this poll? I'll have the results for you when we get back. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Dente sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. Liam Griffin from the Washington Times in 10 minutes. Ben Standig at noon. The Athletic put out a ranking of quarterbacks based off of talking to 6 GMs, 6 assistant GMs, 6 former GMs, 5 other executives, 8 head coaches, and 19 other coaches, including 15 coordinators. So 50 people, Max. This was a long way of saying this.
It really was.
Yeah, there's a lot there. Are they going to give me like their social security numbers next year? Like, what is all of this?
Listen, if you're gonna break down everyone's job, you might as well just give us a list of who it was.
Yeah, just give me the names. Like, I want to know who said what. But Mike Sandow, The Athletic, put together a 50-person panel, and they ranked quarterbacks. They are the latest to do this. This is a normal thing that we get during the offseason. By the way, I'll tell you in a second where C.J. Stroud ranked on the NFL Top 100 list and how that could impact where Jaden Daniels is going to fall on that. Hopefully next week, but maybe at the end of this week.
No.
So Mike Sandow put together this list, and these are separated into tiers. There are 5 total tiers. Tier number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They didn't get exactly creative with this. I can tell you, though, there are 34 quarterbacks on this list. One of them is in tier 5. There is one guy in tier 5. It is Kenny Pickett. He is all alone.
Man, what a stray.
I mean, why wouldn't you just leave him out of this?
Stray.
You didn't have to rank him. They ranked 2 Colts quarterbacks. They ranked 2 Browns quarterbacks, and Kenny Pickett was 34. You don't care about Kenny Pickett, though. You care about Jaden Daniels. And Jaden Daniels was ranked 6 on this list, the first quarterback in tier number 2. So the 5 in front of him, a tie for number 1 overall, which this is actually a little surprising, with Mahomes and Joe Burrow. I would have thought that Lamar would have been in that top spot, or at least number 2, based off of what he said played last year.
That's the thing, though. Coaches and execs, for whatever reason, they just do not like Lamar.
They do. I think it's more they love Joe Burrow.
That too.
I can't blame them. I would take a bullet for the man, like in the foot, but still, I'd take a bullet for the man.
Yeah, any of these top 4 guys, I'd probably take one for.
Or yeah, if it was Hurts, I might put. Never mind. I'm kidding.
He's far down on this list. We don't
he's far down. Yeah, he's not top 5. Josh Allen 3, Lamar 4, and then Matthew Stafford at 5. Stafford ahead of Jaden Daniels has been. It's like they almost flip-flop on a lot of these lists. Like, one list will have Jaden at 5 ahead of Stafford. The other list will have Stafford at 5 ahead of Jaden. If you're an idiot, you don't have Jaden in the top 5 at all, or top 10 at Yahoo Sports. But for the most part, it's Jaden and Stafford battling it out for 5 and 6. The occasional person will throw in Jalen Hurts in there. Jalen Hurts is further down on this list. But Jaden is at number 6, ahead of Justin Herbert at number 7, Goff at 8, and then a tie for 9th with Stroud and Hurts, Baker Mayfield 11, Dak at 12. Love and Purdy round out tier number 2. Tier number 2 is a very, very large. There's about 8 or 9 guys in here from tier number 2, but Jaden is at the top of that list. It is nice to see that the coaches and the general managers, Max, are recognizing that Jaden is above Justin Herbert, because the coverage of Justin Herbert has been mind-numbing at times.
I have a buddy who's a Chargers fan, so we get into this debate constantly. So it's very fun to see the general public at large also doing the same thing that me and my buddy do on a nightly basis.
I mean, look, man, he has a lot of intangibles. There's a lot of what ifs when it comes to Justin Herbert. And I know Kevin is a big fan of Justin Herbert.
What if he had a receiving core?
What if he had a receiving core? What if he had a defense? What if he had a head coach? Like, every single what if that you could realistically think of, he has had that question surrounded him. You know who did not have that? Jaden, because Jaden did not have a great receiving core, and he still got the NFC Championship game. Didn't have a great defense, still got the NFC Championship game. Coaching, I thought, was fine. I'm not going to.
Didn't have a great O-line. It was good.
It was a fine offensive line, not a great offensive line. Still got to the NFC Championship game. Played well in the NFC Championship game until the very end, where at that point the game was out of reach because everybody else kept turning the football over. So Jaden being at 6 here is a very, very good spot for him. I would still say he's over Stafford, but I'm not going to get upset if someone says Stafford over Jaden. That is the only quarterback I will hear an argument for in this year NFC for being above Jaden in these rankings. I still would not put him above him, but if you want to make that argument, I feel like that one is a valid one. It gets crazy when you start seeing like Jalen Hurts, Baker Mayfield, Jordan Love. God forbid. I mean, no one's put Brock Purdy over him, but if anyone did put Brock Purdy over him, trust me, we would get after those mofos. Jaden and Stafford are definitively the number 1 and number 2 quarterbacks in the NFC. Elsewhere in the division, I mentioned Dak at 12. They have Russell Wilson at 26.
Ooh.
He belongs there.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Russell Wilson stinks. I don't think he's very good. He made one good throw last year.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins above Russ, which I kind of disagree with at this point. Kirk last year was abysmal.
Kirk being so I lied. They have 2 Falcons quarterbacks in here.
Oh,
they
yeah,
got Kirk and Penix.
Penix is low on this list.
Penix is way too low on this list. This list is a little bit of a disaster. Kyler Murray at 15, Aaron Rodgers 16, Tua 17, Trevor Lawrence 18, Geno 19, Bo Nix and Darnold tied for 20, Drake May 22, Caleb Williams 23, Bryce Young 24, Kirk 25, Russell Wilson at 26, Fields at 27, and then you get to Penix at 28, J.J. McCarthy at 29. Saying that Penix is only one spot over J.J. McCarthy, who has legitimately never played, is laughable. Daniel Jones at 30, good. Joe Flacco at 31. Joe Flacco's 40, and he's still on this list. That's crazy to me. Anthony Richardson, who I don't think is very good, at 32. Rattler at 33. Kenny Pickett at 34.
It's an interesting back half, for sure.
Thank God. Thank God we don't really care about the back half. It is so nice to have these conversations.
Doesn't it feel great to be free?
With Jaden being in the upper echelon of these things. He should be above Stafford to me, but just him being in the upper echelon of these things. We used to get to like, man, is Sam Howell going to crack the top 28? Find out next. Man, where is Taylor Heineke going to rank on the preseason rankings of quarterbacks? Does he make it to the top 30?
Feels like we're frolicking through a field.
I am cartwheeling. I can't even cartwheel. I am cartwheeling like Creed from The Office and saying this is a great cartwheel in a field outside of Ashburn, Virginia. It is fantastic. All right. Liam Griffin going to be with us next to get his thoughts on preseason game number 1 and what we can expect this week at practice leading up to preseason game number 2. Ben Standing will join us at 12. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Dende sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980.
All right, the Washington Commanders have announced a little bit of a roster shakeup following their first preseason loss to the New England Patriots. They have released cornerback Alan George, defensive end Viliami Fehoko, and linebacker and former 5th-round pick in 2024 Dominique Hampton has been released from the Washington Commanders as 3 exit. 3 more enter. The Commanders have signed former Dolphins linebacker Duke Riley, corners Esong Bassi, and Antonio Hamilton Sr., who all worked out after practice yesterday. To the WNBA, the Mystics, they win 91-78. Kiki Ariafin notches her 10th double-double on the year. And some entertainment news, UFC pay-per-views are no more. The UFC has reached a 7-year, $7.7 billion deal with Paramount to air fight nights on Paramount Plus, and numbered UFC events will reportedly be available for free on CBS. To baseball, the Nats, they wrapped up their weekend series with the Giants in an 8-0 win. Mackenzie Gore had a great outing with 6 innings pitched and earning 10 strikeouts. Only one batter walked. C.J. Abrams with the lone home run of the game, but the bat stayed hot for the Nats as they earned 17 hits yesterday. Tonight, they will kick off their series in Kansas City. Kate Cavalli is the expected starter. First pitch at 7:40. Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave at 7:10. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980. Hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1 and Craig Hoffman from 4 to 7. Don't forget to like the streams and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin. Ben Standing will join us in 20 minutes. But now we head out to the phones. Welcome on Liam Griffin. Covers the Commanders for the Washington Times. You can find him on Twitter at by Liam Griffin. Liam, first and foremost, man, appreciate you making some time for us. Your initial thoughts on Friday's blowout loss to the Patriots?
Yeah, it was as bad as it looked. It was sloppy in all three phases, but I feel like you talk to anybody who was on the field for that, they're going to tell you if you're going to have a disaster like that, you'd rather have it in preseason week 1 than regular season week 1.
What were the biggest positives from the game?
I mean, you got to look to the rookies. I think Trey Amos, I was kind of surprised to see him start, given that they had 30 different, rotational and starters sit, and Trey Amos is quickly shot to the top of the depth chart. He played a couple series and looked fantastic doing it in coverage. He provided everything that, us talking heads in the media have been clamoring about since he got here in the spring. So having him do that on the field in a different environment was great to see. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt flash that one cut ability, that ability to get straight up the field and get going. And Johnny Newton obviously had the one splash play for the defense. That's what you want to see from him on the defensive line. That's going to be without John Allen this year.
How optimistic are you about Johnny Newton? I loved him. What I saw Liam on Friday was excellent. I've been waiting for that. You saw that in college when he played at Illinois. You didn't really see it a lot last year, but we got it in week 1 of the preseason. How optimistic are you that what we saw will be a consistent factor of his play this year?
I'm very optimistic about it. Kind of like you have been high on him since the draft. His feet and his quickness are something and combined with the size, are just so unique as a defensive lineman. And so working in a rotation this year alongside guys like Eddie Goldman and Javon Kinlaw and Daron Payne, I think as a pass rusher is going to be huge. And I really think that a second year in the system, a full offseason after he missed so much of that rookie offseason with the foot injury, I really think that you're going to see more of that than the kind of slow start you saw from him last year.
Are you surprised that they cut Dominique Hampton this morning?
No, I'm kind of surprised that it happened today, but I didn't. In every 53-man roster projection I've had, I haven't seen him making the final 53 just because he's never really flashed since he's made the transition from safety to linebacker. And that's a group that they have openings, outside of Frankie Louvu and Bobby Wagner. That's kind of it. I mean, Jordan McGee is someone who they really love, but hasn't been able to stay on the field. And that's why they brought in guys like Kane Madrano to say, okay, someone's got to be a third and fourth linebacker in this group. And clearly wasn't going to be Dominique Hampton.
What about Kane Maderno? Did you like what you saw from him on Friday?
Yeah, I think you saw the speed, which is really what he can bring to the table so quickly. There's obviously going to be a lot to clean up. Like, I think he had a missed tackle. He made 3 tackles, missed 1 from my count. But I think the athleticism, his ability to plug holes in run defense, run sideline to sideline on those outside zone plays, and drop back into coverage, it wasn't great. There's clearly a lot to clean up, but he has time. When you're playing behind guys like Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu, everyone on the team, offense and defense, is constantly talking about the way they approach the mental aspect of the game. And that's something that you can really pick up at linebacker. So nothing flashy, but you saw what you've seen in training camp.
Liam Griffin, my guest here on the Kevin Sheehan Show, with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. Liam, I was hoping that somebody in the wide receiver room would really separate themselves to potentially join the group of Terry and Debo and all these different guys that we have a pretty good feeling are going to be on the roster. Did you feel like anybody did that against New England?
Not against New England, no. Someone who's been impressing me throughout camp has been Jalen Lane, but he didn't really flash at all on the field. He had the punt returns, at least that operation seemed pretty clean. But I talked to him yesterday. He was like, yeah, I'm just getting used to the speed, used to the physicality, being on an NFL field. But he's someone who's going to be on this roster opening day. And it really seems like who's going to step up. You have 5 kind of confirmed guys in Terry McLaurin, Debo, Luke McCaffrey, and Jalen Lane. But after that, someone else has to be there. Is it going to be Michael Gallup? Is it going to be KJ Osborne? And how are the rest of those guys going to step up in Terry's absence? They have the opportunity now. Those reps are available. And throughout camp, we've seen them pass around from guys like Chris Moore, who's bounced around the league, to Michael Straken, and nobody's really capitalized quite yet. Ja'Cory Brooks is another one who probably had the best game of anybody on that receiver group, but is he going to be able to show consistency throughout the preseason to maybe make a run at that final spot on the roster?
Have you heard anything in relation to Terry and when he could potentially be practicing again, maybe with a new deal?
We've had nothing. We saw him throughout the opening of training camp. He'd come out during the open practice days for fans and sign autographs. But we didn't see him yesterday, and I don't think we saw him in the last open practice before that either. And we've heard nothing from his agent, Bucky Brooks. And so this is something that seems like it's in a stalemate. And I wouldn't be surprised if we don't hear anything else until the week leading up to the season, because at some point something's got to give. Terry would be leaving money on the table, losing game checks. That's just not good business for anybody.
Great. That's what we love to hear. We're just going to stalemate this with your second best player until week one. I mean, it is a little bit of a gut punch that of all the people that are causing chaos, and I don't think that Terry is not justified if he wants, a certain dollar figure, but of all the guys to cause the chaos, the one that you think of as the one who embodies being a commander the most, being the guy to cause the chaos is, shall we say, a gut punch.
Yeah, absolutely. And in our conversations with him, he doesn't appear happy about the situation either. He doesn't love finding himself in this role, but at the same time, like you said, like he feels that he is worth a certain to stick to that.
Liam Griffin, my guest here, covers the Commanders for the Washington Times. You can find him on Twitter @ByLiamGriffin. He joins us here on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin. Did we see the last of Sam Hartman as a quarterback here after Friday?
Definitely not quite yet, just because those reps are there to go around during the preseason. Detroit Lions quarterbacks coach David Blau has been getting a lot of work while Marcus Mariota has been working back into the lineup. So you'll definitely still see Sam Hartman around the field in training camp. He'll get more shots this preseason, but if the next two preseason games are like that, he will have lost the competition for the third quarterback spot, and he will find his way on the practice squad again. And who knows how secure that's going to be going forward, but they keep giving him those opportunities, and we'll see if he's able to turn that around, but it didn't look great.
When you're doing your roster projections, are you keeping three quarterbacks?
Sorry, you cut out there one more time.
When you're doing your roster projections, your final 53s, are you under the impression that they're going to keep three quarterbacks?
I have it as three quarterbacks just based on what they did last season with Jeff Driscoll. I know a lot of people go with two because you can elevate pretty easily, but with the way that the current season handles quarterback activations in particular, I do think they're going to keep three on the field, especially with Marcus Mariota being in and out of the lineup. Jaden Daniels and Marcus Mariota are not they're not exactly Iron Men. They have been known to miss some games here and there. So I think that you would love to have a guy like Josh Johnson who can come in, operate the offense at a competent level every week.
Do you think that Friday justified some of the hype surrounding Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt?
I do. I know the final stat line wasn't flashy. I think he finished with like 24 yards on 7 carries, which isn't great, and then a catch for 8. But I do think that finally some fans get to see, okay, yeah, this guy he's got the juice, really. Like, he's got the ability to get upfield. He can find holes in the line. He can be decisive. That's what really has impressed me, especially as a rookie and as someone who was kind of out of football for a year due to, the eligibility stuff in college. His ability to immediately read what's going on and be decisive in attacking holes has really impressed me throughout camp. And I saw that on Friday as well. And that's something that I think is going to rapidly accelerate as he gets closer to the regular season and as he starts kind of taking snaps away from Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler.
Do you think he's going to jump McNichols on the depth chart at some point before the regular season?
I don't know if he'll be able to do it before the regular season, just because I know this team loves Jeremy McNichols so much and what he provides, as a pass protector, as a pass catcher, and in the special teams as well. I think they might end up keeping 4 running backs on the first 53. But it wouldn't surprise me if Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is the third and final running back when the season starts. That wouldn't shock me at all.
Do you think they keep 4 tight ends? It's almost looking like there's going to be a really tough decision made between Colson Yankoff and Ben Sinnott.
Yeah, I think that Ben Sinnott's roster spot is pretty safe just because of the draft capital they expended. And he's had a pretty good camp. He hasn't been super flashy. He obviously hasn't been Zach Ertz level, but especially yesterday, he made a few like really solid grabs and contested coverage, had a one-handed catch in the end zone as well. I think that you're seeing development from him, and tight end in particular, Brock Bowers, notwithstanding, is a position that takes a little while because you have the protection, you have the run blocking, you have the receiving as well. So I would be surprised if Ben Sinnott is not on the 53, and they do also love Yankoff. It's really hard if they're going to be able to find a spot on the active roster for him, but I don't think either of those guys are going to be going anywhere. They're going to be in the building one way or another, whether it's practice squad or the 53.
What do you think they're going to do this week to clamp down on the penalties? The 13 can't happen again.
No, and that's the exact thing you don't want to see. The score is going to be the score, whatever. You give up a few big splashy plays and you find yourself in a hole, that's fine. But that amount of penalties, and the ones that really kill Dan Quinn that he's always talking about, are the pre-snap ones. If you're an offensive lineman or a defensive back and you're holding because you're trying to get leverage, that's one thing. They can live with that. But any kind of, basically the clerical errors, your motions and your false starts and your delay of games, those are the ones that they are going to hate to see. And so I think you're going to see this week during practice a lot more, drive to drive kind of setups and attention to detail in those things. They love to finish a practice with a red zone and with an end of game situation. I think you might see a little bit less of that as they try to go back to basics a little bit, trying to make sure they can clean that up.
All right, Liam, final question here before I let you get out of here. Should we expect to see Jaden on Monday night against Cincinnati?
Yeah, I would expect to see Jaden just because you're definitely not going to see him in preseason week 3. I would be shocked if you see him against the Ravens, especially since they have a joint practice that he'll work in. But I would expect to see Jaden at least for a series or two Monday night against Cincinnati.
That is something that we will all be very, very excited about. He is Liam Griffin. He covers the Commanders for the Washington Times, and he was good enough to join us here on the Kevin Sheehan Show. Liam, appreciate the time as always, my friend. Enjoy practice this afternoon.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
You can find him on Twitter at Liam Griffin. Does a great job covering the team, and he's out there in practice just about every single day. So he will have you up to date with everything going on at practice. Practice today is at 2 p.m. It's a little bit later. Generally, it's been at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m., mostly due to the heat. It was always scheduled for 9 and then moved to 8. It will be a little bit earlier tomorrow. I say all that to say Dan Quinn is going to be talking today at 1:30, which I don't want to book Chris Russell's show for him, Max, but I feel pretty comfortable firing at the hip saying that Chris Russell is likely going to be airing the Dan Quinn presser at 1:30.
I think we could say that with almost certainty. If not, then words will be had. So
right. So you will hear some portion of Dan Quinn on the Chris Russell show coming up here in about 90 minutes when he takes the podium at 1:30. You heard Liam mention there at the end of the conversation, he's expecting that Jane Daniels is going to play on Monday against Cincinnati. I am expecting Jane Daniels to play in some capacity on Monday against Cincinnati. I don't know that it will be an entire quarter. I'd say maybe 2 series for sure, and then they can kind of feel the game out in the process through there. You also just have to take into consideration that you're going up against a defense in Cincinnati's defense that is particularly awful. And they have added more players, but they still are not very good. So you might only need to see Jaden for 2 series because that could be 2 touchdown drives against the Bengals. He did it last year, right? So like we've seen him have success against them. I don't think you'll see him a ton, but mostly because you won't need to see him a ton against that Cincinnati defense, but it will still be exciting to see Jaden out there nonetheless. When we get back, we're going to move Ben Standig. He needs to do 12:25. So you'll hear from Ben in about 30 minutes. I have a few more takeaways from the preseason action, plus the latest on Terry. Are we at the point where this needs to not be a conversation anymore? It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. Ben Standing going to be with us in about 25 minutes. Get his thoughts on preseason game number 1 for the Commanders. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin. You can tweet me at the Denton Day. You want to give your preseason takeaways, 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. One thing we have not talked about, Max, that needs to be discussed, and I cannot think of a better platform to discuss it than this one here. One of the benefits of the preseason is local broadcasts.
Absolutely.
And that comes with local advertisements.
Oh,
well,
man.
locally, whoever decided to put the Carter Cat logo that is bright and vibrant yellow on the score bug for the entirety of the game on Friday needs to have their decision-making privileges revoked. That was an awful, like a comedically bad idea.
It was bad, and it wouldn't have been as bad if I wasn't watching it with people. But every single play for the first, 5 minutes of the first quarter, there was somebody in the group that went, "Oh, is there a penalty? Oh, is there a flag?
Hey, that's yellow."
Like, it's a textbook, unwritten rule of broadcast anywhere,
You can't
national
put yellow.
or local. No yellow.
You cannot put yellow. That is like a very well-known, well-associated color in broadcasting in the NFL. And it was really highlighted, pun intended, it was highlighted on the first play because Travion Henderson takes it to the house, and I see the yellow, and I'm like, oh, good job, guys, coming back. There's a holding on the play. We see these all the time. And nope, it's just Carter Cat. And you're like, dog, who came up with this? Again, it is textbook. You cannot put yellow on the score bug. If you want to have an advertisement, great. And I know that their colors involve heavy amounts of yellow. You got to come up with a better design that has no yellow. Or at the very least, take it off of the score bug and put it like right beneath. You know how like CBS always has their logo like in one of the corners?
Mm-hmm.
Just put the Carter Cat logo right beneath the CBS logo.
Well, like the other thing, Carter, the colors for Cat are yellow and black. Make black the primary for that ad and just put the text in yellow. It's such an easy fix that all you needed to do was revert the colors. I'm shocked it didn't happen mid-game.
I don't understand. I keep calling it Carter Cat. I think that's more of a North Carolina thing. One of my friends works there. Anyway, I got to text him about this actually. But you have to have somebody smart enough when selling this advertisement, when designing this advertisement. You need one football person in the room to point to it and say, this is not going to work. I don't know what the money value was with the deal, but you can't put the yellow on the score bug. You got to take the yellow off. If, again, you bring up a really good idea, Max. If you want to flip it so you get the black and then the yellow text on the black, that's very easy. Kind of blends in with the score bug. Or all you needed was the logo, which they had next to the then big yellow bar that occupied a significant amount of the score bug. To their credit, we know who Cat is now. If you watch that game on WUSA 9, you're watching it being like, man, I know what this company is. I hate them right now, but I know what this company is. They just got to be smarter about this. If we're going to watch these games locally, which the Monday night game is going to be ESPN, so that one's not going to have that issue. Maybe there is a WUSA 9 broadcast with it, but I would imagine if it's on Monday Night Football, it's just going to be only ESPN. So you only have to see this twice, but by the time that Baltimore game comes around, that better be situated. Somebody needs to be, as Kevin would say, the adult in the room and get into a meeting and say, we can't put yellow on the score bug. Any other color, you just cannot put yellow. The fact that it took me 2 hours to mention that is maybe a little bit of a mess up on the radio host job.
Well, it happened Friday. It's Monday now. It's been a long time. It took you a minute to remember, but we got there.
We got there eventually. This is the benefit of 3 hours. People didn't listen to the 10 a.m. hour. They're here now. They're like, this is the first time I've heard this guy. You just can't do yellow. Get the yellow out of there for that Baltimore Ravens game. So because of the way that the preseason game ended up playing out and because of the way this offseason has gone, I did see a bunch on Twitter. And I get it. Twitter is a fun place for these sorts of things. I saw a bunch on Twitter that said, great day to be Terry McLaurin on Friday. Receiver situation was not great. Chris Moore was dropping passes. Ja'Cory Brooks looked good, but he's going up against third and fourth teamers. So it's not really, you're not going up against the main guys. Like he wasn't one-on-one with Christian Gonzalez in New England. Everyone's saying this is a good day for Terry McLaurin. We are at the point now where any day where this deal is not signed is a bad day for Terry. We are now midway through, or just about midway through the month of August. There has been no movement on a contract. In fact, the only thing that we have heard from reputable sources are that things are getting worse. The relationship is deteriorating. I think it was Jeremy Fowler that said that. Fowler has been pretty stand pat on the number being 25. Now, admittedly, he has not said 25, but he's saying a little bit more than 23 that Courtland Sutton got, but still $7 million away from 32, which is what DK got. You don't have to be a genius to be able to do that math. Even if you're not a genius, you can just use your phone, and your phone has a calculator. 32 minus 7 is 25. So it feels like Fowler is pretty stand pat on 25. The reporting on this, as many of us know, has been legitimately awful in that no one is knowing anything for real. Any of the top guys are not putting massive reports out. They're just saying this is what I'm hearing, which is kind of like their fallback. So when Schefter says what I'm hearing, or I believe he wants X, which he was the one that came up with the DK number, he's not making an official report. He's saying this is what I'm hearing. And there is a little bit of a difference in that. I hope most of you recognize that. A report versus a gut feeling are two very different things. And Schefter over the years has been a little bit more of a gut feeling guy recently because ESPN is using him in much more opinionated roles, which is kind of dangerous, but this is not the time for me to be on my journalism lecture standpoint here. No one knows what's happening, but there's also no movement. And at this point, the leverage that Terry has is the same as it's always been, which is that there's not a lot of good players playing wide receiver on this roster. The problem is the front office already knows that. They did not need a situation against New England to be like, hey, you know what? Maybe our Jalen Lanes and Luke McCaffreys aren't fantastic. They are already aware of that, which makes me very worried, Max, that this is going to potentially get really sideways. So you asked me earlier in the show, has the panic meter moved? And the answer is yes. It had been a 4 for a long time because we were having conversations in July. And the NFL season doesn't start until September. I don't care about conversations in July. And then after Terry requested a trade, what was that, a week and a half ago now at this point?
Just about, yeah.
When he requested a trade, that panic meter moves because at the very least, he now opens the possibility for a trade. I don't believe that he wants to be traded. Everyone that has talked about this has said, I don't believe that he wants to be traded. I don't believe that Washington is going to trade him. We have had these conversations until we are blue in the face. But at the very least, when you say I'm requesting a trade, you open up that possibility to becoming a reality. So the panic meter moved a little bit. It is now August 11th. No contract has been signed. And it feels like this is going to be ridden out until the very end, where a decision is going to be made on Terry's point. Am I playing for the contract that I'm currently signed under, or am I going to take the super mega holdout role that Le'Veon Bell tried with Pittsburgh all those years ago, that to an extent kind of worked because he got out of that contract with Pittsburgh and then got paid a lot of money by the Jets, but that money in terms of guarantees with the Jets wasn't a lot, and he didn't live out the longevity of that contract. And then he never really played in the NFL again. He had a couple like stints, cups of coffee in like Kansas City, I remember. But outside of that, he never really played and wasn't really impactful after that first season with the Jets. I can't fathom Terry taking that approach. But as we get closer, I do feel a little bit more worried of that potentially being the move, because there's nothing else that can happen right now that majorly swings leverage in one direction or the other. Washington at this point is not going to budge. Terry does not seem like he wants to budge. I say he doesn't seem like he wants to budge because in a majority of these extensions or these scenarios, it's the player that always budges. The franchise usually doesn't. It's the player that budges. If they had $30 million to give him, they would have given him $30 million already. I don't think they needed to watch that game against New England and be like, you know what? I don't know that this Chris Moore guy, who's really not played, exceptional at other teams, he's not been a bad player, but it's not like he's a number one wide receiver. They know that. They're not saying, you know what? He dropped 2 passes. We should probably up the money that we're going to give Terry. We should cut that check for, maybe he does deserve the DK money. That's not how these negotiations are going to work. That panic meter, Max, is now at a 7.
That's high.
It's moved. It's at a 7. It was a 6. It's now at a 7.
So I've kind of been using the DEFCON scale. Now I know Ben and Kevin kind of chatted about it at the end of last week. But so DEFCON 5 is there's no problem. DEFCON 4 is I'm prepared for a problem. DEFCON 3 is there's a problem. I'm keeping an eye on it. DEFCON 2 is there is a problem and something we are prepared at most. And then 1 is it's active. Things are happening. Things are bad. I'm at a 2.
Yeah, things are pretty close to being bad.
Yeah.
And the issue from Terry's standpoint is like Washington could just completely wreck him. He plays under this contract. They slap him with the franchise tag. The franchise tag projected next year for wide receivers to be about $28.6 million.
Less than he wants now.
Less than he is reportedly asking for now. So, like, when you talk about this idea of leverage, he does not have a ton of it.
No. And the pay-as-you-go strategy, like Kevin's been talking about, is becoming more and more enticing for the team.
Way more enticing because that's literally what they did for 90% of their free agents last year. They signed all these dudes to 1-year deals and then said, we'll see what next year brings. Now, they brought a good majority of them back, but they didn't bring back Dante Fowler. He's gone. For all your Zach Ertzes, you get a Dante Fowler in there and a pay-as-you-go from a guy that is entering his age 30 season, that next year will be entering his age 31 season, getting $28 million a year at age 31 is a pretty nice consolation for a wide receiver. Not a lot of wide receivers have ever gotten that caliber of money at that age, but it doesn't provide you any sort of financial security, and he's looking for financial security. Everyone has been talking about maybe Terry will sign a 2-year, $60 million fully guaranteed contract. Why on earth would he do that? The more that I think about this, I'm sure he is maybe in the direction of a longer-term deal. Maybe the guarantees aren't going to stretch out throughout the majority of that contract, but at the very least, if you sign a longer-term deal, 4 years, even if it's 3 years, you at least give yourself another year of getting a paycheck potentially. And by the time you get to 32, 33 years old, you're just wanting to still be around in the league and still be competing for championships and playing competitive and professional football with a quarterback who, mind you, is going to be a great quarterback. He already has been a great quarterback for 1 year, but has a lot of years in his future of being a great quarterback. I don't know that anything that we saw on Friday drastically helped Terry in any capacity, because that would be under the assumption that the team thought there was going to be any other different result than what they saw on the field in terms of production from a wide receiver. As much as we love Ja'Cory Brooks and we like to tweet about him, we like to comment on the YouTube about Ja'Cory Brooks. Maybe you go to Instagram and you go into back and forth with people in the comment section on Instagrams, on your TikToks, what have you. He's fighting for a roster spot, not fighting for the number 1 wide receiver spot. He's just going to be happy if he gets into an NFL game this year. He's not going to be the one that's replacing the production of Terry. They know that. We should know that, although these times are kind of when we like to have fun with these conversations, Max, as you know, with, hey, I like him. He's a good player. He's our guy, in the hopes that one day you'll actually end up getting one of those things correct.
Everyone wants to be right.
Everybody wants to be right. Trust me. I sat in your position for 3 years and fielded phone calls of people that were defending players to the death, thinking I am going to be right about this player.
Listen, man, some people still do defend those players
and
to the death.
Oftentimes they were dead ass wrong. Some of them got it right, but most people got it wrong. Brooks is not the answer to Terry. Eventually there's going to be a collapsing on one side. I liken this, Max. This is something personally that is going on in my life, and it's going on it's really been going on since the entirety of the Terry thing ensued. Maybe there is a little bit more than just a
Might be some correlation here.
metaphor here. Maybe this is correlation. I live in it's not a high-rise apartment. It's 5 floors, but
A building.
It's a building, right? I live in a building. And in this building, I live on not the top floor. I'm not telling you what floor, you don't need to know, but it's not the top floor. It's not the bottom floor. So it's somewhere in between 1 and 5.
I'm going to guess 4.
I will let that guess live in the ether.
You should.
Regardless, the floor actually doesn't matter. But what matters is that there's a trash room on the floor.
Sure.
And it's for trash. It is for recycling. In the trash room is a sign that says, if you have bulky items, please take them to the necessary spot. And on the first floor, there is like 2 large dumpsters. So if you have a bulky item, you take them downstairs to 2 large dumpsters. The office also provides like gurneys. So if you have massive items, you can go, hey, you just give me your ID, get the gurney situation. And they have like multiple different sizes. They hook you up. So they make it as easy as possible to move bulky ass items down to the necessary dumpster. Currently sitting in the trash room that is closest to my apartment, which thankfully not crazy close, but close enough, right? Right around the corner.
Yeah.
Is a 6-part couch. Because someone was getting rid of a couch. They put it in the recycling room, in the trash room, and the trash people are like, it is not our job to move a 6-part couch.
Correct.
The people that put the 6-part couch in there, I don't know if they just got another couch. I don't know if they moved. I don't know what their story is, but I know that they haven't moved that thing. So since late July, which is when training camp happened to start, there's been a 6-part couch sitting in the trash room. The trash room is not very big, which means when you open the door, you cannot open it all the way because there is a 6-part couch that's now stacked. So somebody stacked it, but it still doesn't allow you to open the door all the way up. And eventually, either management or whoever put the damn couch there is going to have to bite the bullet, and they're going to have to move the couch. It has been almost an entire month, and that has not happened. And that correlation is way too similar to what is going on here with Terry and Washington. They have an issue. Everybody realizes that the issue is happening, but we have gotten to the point where we are now almost a month into these sorts of things, although for Terry's standpoint, it's been longer than a month. But if we're just counting from when he held out to now holding in and when the training camp has begun, it has been about a month, and no one is getting any closer to coming to a deal. Maybe I have to move the couch. If I move the couch, do we think Terry signs?
You know,
if I could get confirmation on that, my ass would move the couch.
I would say it'd be very worth it.
But here's the thing. I am not doing somebody's work for free. That is not how I operate.
No, there's a fee.
I live by the wise words of the Joker. If you're good at something, never do it for free. By the way, I'm not good at moving anything, but I'm still not doing labor intensive work for free like that. But that's where we are with Washington and Terry. We're just looking at the couch in this trash room and saying, I hope somebody cleans it up. And ain't nobody going to come clean it up. So who is going to be the first one to budge? If it's Terry, he's probably getting $27 million per year. If it's the team, he's probably going to get $30 million per year. But the thing is that Adam Peters, who just cut a guy today that he drafted in the 5th round last year, which the 5th round, late rounds of the draft was supposedly Adam Peters' bread and butter. He just drafted him last year. He cut him. There's not a lot of ego there with Adam Peters, which leads me to believe that he is going to trust whatever model they are using, which I would guess is heavily based off of analytics, the age being 30, production kind of dipping when you are 30 versus the amount that Terry is commanding in terms of the contract. We've allegedly heard $32 million. Some have said the AAVs aren't a big sticking point. It's more about guarantees and language. I have no idea. I could tell you I have a gut. I don't have a gut feel. I've had 3 gut feels, and the gut feels have never worked. My gut's tired as hell, bro. Like I'd need laxatives at this point to just get all this stuff out of the gut. I'm just holding too much onto this. I just want this to be done. You guys are tired of hearing it. I get tweeted at all the time, which you can tweet me at the Denton Day. Like, please talk about something other than Terry McLaurin. I am trying. We are trying. They just need to sign the damn contract. Ben Standing. He joins us next. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show on the Team 980. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Dent Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. It is a Monday. Every Monday, our guy Ben Standing is good enough to jump on with us here on the program. He does that now. He is the host of the Last Man Standing podcast, and he covers the team on his Substack. You can find the link on his Twitter at Ben Standing. All right, Ben, 13 penalties in week number 1 of the preseason. Surely that's going to get cleaned up this week, right?
We will see. That definitely was unsightly. Obviously, the scoreboard is a reflection of the talent that was on the sideline not playing, but the penalties, whether you're the starter or the backup, that's something that the coaching staff is going to find unacceptable. So you definitely need to clean that up for sure.
What positives did you find from the game itself? As you mentioned, we don't care about the scoreboard, but what did you find from the game itself that was positive?
Yeah, I think if you just look at the guys that we kind of believe are going to start or be heavily involved with the team, Johnny Newton, Trey Amos, in particular, I think those guys, Josh Connerly as well, I think those guys had, good to really impressive performances. Newton wasn't in there that long, yet he forced a fumble. He stopped a screenplay from developing. So that was good. Trey Amos just continues to have a really solid summer for a rookie, looks the part. And, Connerly, I think his work in New England, both the joint practice and the game, I would say probably the best that we've seen from him maybe throughout the summer. He just looked more confident. He said after the joint practice that he was thinking less, going up against new people allowed him to play a little bit freer, and that continued into the game. Beyond that, it's hard to say because so many of the guys were just, we kind of even know what to make of them. But if the 3 guys who are going to look the best were the 3 guys who are probably going to play the most, I think that's a pretty good outcome.
So the hype for Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt has now grown since Friday. Do you feel like the hype is justified based off of what you saw on Friday?
Yeah, look, you've been out at practice. We've seen variations of what he did there. The ability to avoid tacklers. He made some plays in the passing game. There was the one false start, but obviously he was the only one who was making those kinds of mistakes. So yeah, it looked really impressive to me. I don't know if we saw enough of the pass blocking, and obviously just from a workload standpoint, it wasn't too much going on. He did get dinged up, and I think that cut short his outing. But to me, he looks really good. Whether that's enough to say he's got to be high in the rotation, or it's just he's on the roster and we'll see where it goes, that's I think to be determined here. But yeah, to me, I think the hype is justified for sure.
Is there a better chance of them keeping 4 running backs or 4 tight ends?
Can I say both?
Yeah, both works. Yeah. Does that mean they cut? Does that mean they have less wide receivers, or what position would they keep less of if they're keeping 4 of both?
I would say so I've only had them keeping 5 receivers right now because I don't know who the 6th would be, and that's with that's with Luke McCaffrey as one of them, and that's not exactly that's not exactly looking great at the moment. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, it feels like I thought that Luke was going to really ball out against New England, and it felt like he was there. We saw him on the field. I don't know, for whatever reason they didn't throw to him as much as I would have hoped. Same with Jalen Lane. I know people love Ja'Cory Brooks. People love, again, maybe not love, but they like Gallup and KJ Osborne. So it feels like most of those guys maybe don't really have a realistic chance of being on the final 53.
Well, look, they're going to have to make some decisions here. We don't know when Noah Brown is going to, be fully back, and obviously the Terry situation. So, a lot's going to depend on that. I think the thing is, as much as we make a lot about the 53, myself included, the practice squad is so deep that it really, doesn't matter too much. You know what I mean? I can easily see 2 of those vets in Ja'Cory Brooks or Strachan or somebody all on the practice squad, and then you elevate as needed. So whether they keep 5 or keep 6 is not probably a real reflection on what to make of it. But yeah, honestly, to me, I feel like the 6th receiver is probably on another team right now.
Ben Standing, our guest here, is the host of the Last Man Standing podcast. You can find it on his Twitter. He covers the team on Substack as well. The link to that is on his Twitter as well. So we didn't see Jaden Daniels, Ben, on Friday. We saw a lot of Sam Hartman, and Sam Hartman didn't exactly thrive on Friday. What have been the coaching staff's thoughts on what they saw from Hartman against New England?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Cliff Kingsbury before the game, when asked about Hartman's camp, he said it's been up and down, and I think that was perfect representation of what we saw in the game. He can make some really nice throws, but then there's other times where the ball just goes wayward or just bad decisions and so on. I think the thing is Hartman, like, we view him as this younger guy because of the fact that it's only his second year. But he's older than Daniels. I think, what is he, like, 26? I mean, like, a lot of these guys that coming out of college, they've played forever. You're a big college football fan, obviously. So he, Sam Hartman for going back to his Wake Forest days. So it's not like we're talking about somebody who is 22 and you're going to see where you're at. So I don't know if this doesn't change pretty significantly. I don't know that I see him on the 53. And frankly, probably doesn't, even regardless. Like, I mean, he was an undrafted free agent a year ago. He basically lived on their practice squad most of the year. Nobody claimed him. So I think that's probably the safe bet. The question is what happens with Josh Johnson? Clearly he's a competent option. Do you need to keep a 39-year-old third stringer when you have Daniels and Mariota? I don't know about that.
Right.
So the thing is, if you let him go, I would imagine some other team out there, I haven't studied the league, but there must be some team that, be it injuries or just bad quarterback play, might need somebody else. I mean, he was the Ravens backup last year, so that one to me is a little trickier. Again, I personally always like to keep three quarterbacks, but in this instance, I just don't know that it makes a ton of sense for both sides to keep Johnson on as the third guy.
How do they fix the penalty scenario? I know in the days of yesteryear, you're running at practice all day, right? At high school football, you're running at practice all day. I don't know that you can necessarily do that at the professional level. So how do they tighten those things up?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's crazy in the sense that, I know what, like, a lot of the former players that are out there at practice with us, and they're watching what's happening, and they're all kind of like, boy, it's very, very different from when we played. And not to, not to be, it's like, old man yelling at the clouds kind of deal, but there is something to it. I mean, I kind of like you. I was like, okay, they just had a pretty lousy performance of the guys that played. So you would think that on Sunday when they returned to practice, that it would be some sort of old school get after it grunt. Now, I don't know what Dan Quinn said to them inside the building. He might have, yelled and told them this is unacceptable and all that. The practice didn't necessarily feel like that, but that's, again, it's a different era. You just got to clean these things up. I mean, last year, obviously, they were pretty efficient across the board. That's one of the reasons why they were able to, be successful, because they were a team that has a limited margin of error. I think they largely probably still do until proven otherwise. So yeah, they got to clean this up. Again, perhaps it's easy to say, well, look, it was all the backups were in there for the most part, and that's not going to be the case on Sundays for real. But backups are going to play at some point too, so they definitely have to clean that up.
How much do you think we will see from Jaden on Monday?
On Monday, I mean, my take all along has been, I don't know if we see him more than 2 series throughout the preseason. So, at most 2, if they score on the first possession, maybe just the 1. So maybe 2, but obviously they've been, very cautious with what they're doing. They're certainly not the only team doing that. So we'll see, but I would be surprised if it's more than 2, and it may just be even just 1, but I do think he.
Are you surprised that Dominic Hampton got cut today? Did we lose Ben?
Sorry, I lost you there.
Sorry, I was asking about Dominic Hampton. Are you surprised that he got cut this morning?
Yes and no. I mean, surprised in the sense that maybe it happened this quickly.
Right.
But surprised overall. I didn't have him on my 53. When I don't believe I did when I made one like before training, like throw him on there. just because he was a draft pick and, Ty goes to the draft picks. But, he looked like he struggled against New England. He had a 15-yard face mask penalty, and their decision to bring in all of these different veteran linebackers for Trout yesterday. They signed Duke Riley, who was a backup / special teams guy, but that was a signal that, hey, we need more experience here. If Bobby Wagner is out, which he was in this game, what do we have? And right now you just have Jordan McGee, who hasn't been able to stay on the field so far in his young career, and Kane Madrano and Dominic Hampton, two guys who are more or less rookies. Hampton played one game last year, so it didn't work. I think they clearly wanted more experience, so I get it. So only surprised that it happened now, but clearly they weren't thrilled with what they saw on Friday in New England.
All right, Ben, final thing here before I let you get out of here. Does Terry sign before the regular season begins?
We've reached this point. I mean, I know that there's somebody out there who tweets today would be a good day to pay Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, that guy's handsome, apparently.
Sure. Eye of the beholder. No, kidding. Look, I mean, I would think yes, but it does not feel to me from what I've gathered that they've made really much or any progress in the discussion. So at what point, when is the tipping point? We'll see. I don't know that. Hard to say, but you'd like to think that something gets done, but the resolve from both sides seems to be pretty strong. Now we're 2 weeks or so into this.
Ben, I appreciate it as always. Enjoy the later practices this will every day except for tomorrow, but enjoy the later practices that they have going on this week.
Ben, I appreciate it, man. Thanks.
That is Ben Standing, good enough to join us here on the Kevin Sheehan Show. You can find him on Twitter at Ben Standing. That's where you will find his podcast, his Substack, and all of his great Commanders coverage. Coming up next, a little bit of Denton's Daily News, including the first official rankings in the world of college football. What a great day to be alive. We tackle it next on the Kevin Sheehan Show.
All right, the Washington Commanders have announced a roster update following their first preseason loss to the New England Patriots. They have released cornerbacks Alan George, defensive end Viliami Fehoko, and former fifth-round pick linebacker Dominique Hampton out of Washington. As 3 exit, 3 more enter. The Commanders have signed former Dolphin linebacker Duke Riley, cornerbacks Antonio Hamilton Sr. and Essang Bassi, who all worked out after practice yesterday. The Mystics, they win 91-78. Kiki Ariafin notches her 10th double-double on the year. And some entertainment news, UFC pay-per-views are no more. The UFC has reached a 7-year, $7.7 billion deal with Paramount to air fight nights on Paramount Plus and a number of UFC events that will be available for free on CBS. Plus, the Nats, they wrap up their weekend series with the Giants in an 8-0 win. Mackenzie Gore had a great outing with 6 innings pitched, 10 strikeouts, and only giving up 1 walk. CJ Abrams with the lone homer of the game, but the bats stayed hot for the Nationals as they earned 17 hits. Tonight, they will take on the Kansas City Royals in kicking off their series in Kansas City. Kate Cavalli expected to get the start first pitch at 7:40. Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave at 7:10. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1, and Craig Hoffman from 4 to 7. Don't forget to like the stream and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Sheehan on a Monday. He will be back tomorrow. He had some aviation issues.
Those planes, man, they don't like making it off the ground.
I should have told him to tell me what airline, and we can do the bit. It's the most annoying bit on social media where everyone tweets at the airline.
But it
when
works.
The airline screws. It works if you're famous.
It works if your name is Dan Katz, which he's the
the
leader
only
of the
person.
movement. Yeah.
Right. There's a couple people where if you have a certain stature, you can tweet at an airline and it will actually result in something. If Denton Day tweets at insert airline here, they're going to be like, we don't care. Sorry about it. Go talk to customer service. Man, I was in Dallas a couple weeks ago for a wrestling show, and I idiotically said, honey, let's just stay the night at the airport instead of waking up at the butt crack of dawn at a 3:30 or whatever in Dallas. That was a terrible decision. We should have woken up at 3 in Dallas, but whatever. So we get to the airport, and apparently there were tornadoes across the country because a ton of flights were canceled. So we get to our gate, and there's this massive line of people that are just kind of lined up across in front of shops.
My nightmare.
I'm like, what is going on right now? So I just kind of walk, it's like at this point it's midnight.
You're meandering.
So I'm just kind of meandering. And then I realized, oh my God, all of these people are in line at customer service at midnight on a Saturday. You want to talk about having the B team in action.
You know who I feel bad for? And it's none of those people in line. The customer service.
The customer service. It was like, why is the A team not here? Why is nobody helping? I took this job for extra income. What is happening? We're not even supposed to have flights this late out of this airport. It was tough. Anyway, Kevin will be back tomorrow. That was a long, convoluted way of letting everybody know about that. I do feel like getting the college football preseason poll dropped today while I am emergency sitting in for Kevin could not be more poetic.
Serendipitous.
So, Max, if you could, let's hit a Denton's Daily News and let's dive into this AP poll. All right, number one overall, the Maryland Terrapins. No, I'm playing. All right, so they dropped the first AP poll. They had dropped the college coaches poll.
Yes.
I don't really care about the coaches poll. Nobody cares about the coaches poll. It's nice. I don't even know why they still do it, to be honest. We care about the AP poll, and we care about the college football playoff poll. That's it. Any other poll is effectively useless in the year of our Lord, 2025. But they dropped the AP poll. Not a lot of surprises at the top. Texas number one with Arch Manning running wild all over you, brother, and Steve Sarkisian. This was to be expected. Penn State at number two. Penn State is not necessarily a local team by any stretch of the imagination. We do not operate in the great state of Pennsylvania, but there's a significant amount of Penn State grads that live in the DMV, so they are local by extension, it feels like. They're ranked at number two overall, ahead of the Ohio State University, who is number three. There's a lot of pressure on old James Franklin, to get this done. I almost called him Jimmy Franklin. There's a whole lot of pressure on James Franklin to get it done at Penn State this year. They have a returning quarterback, whereas Ohio State does not. They took Ohio State's defensive coordinator in Jim Knowles. Ohio State lost its offensive coordinator in Brian Kelly, and they returned. Penn State does a majority of their production on offense and a lot of their good players outside of Abdul Carter on defense. They had a couple guys drafted in the defensive backfield as well. But they return a lot of players on both the offense and defensive side. If they can't get it done this year, I don't know that James Franklin is on the hot seat, so to speak, but if not now, then when? Because everything is pointing towards Penn State beating Ohio State this year and then making a deep run in the championship. The only thing that is standing in their way is the fact that their coach and quarterback cannot win in big football games. Don't nobody come talking to me about that Boise State game. You should smack Boise State if you are Penn State. Talk to me about that Notre Dame game where they had the lead. They should have beaten Notre Dame, and they could not do it. So this is a big, big year for Penn State. Ohio State at 3, Clemson at 4. That's my national champion right there, the Clemson Tigers. I got them at 13 to 1 to win it. They're now down to 9 to 1 to win it. So the price is dropping drastically for the Clemson Tigers to win the championship. Jump on the bandwagon while you still can. Georgia at 5, Notre Dame at 6, Oregon 7, Alabama 8, LSU 9. Their quarterback's having some issues. I think Garrett Nussmeier will be fine, but he is having some issues in one of his arms. Never a great sign when your quarterback is having issues in his arm. Makes it very difficult to play quarterback. Miami at 10. LOL. This is where things take a big drop off. Like, you can get to LSU and say, all right, these 9 teams feel pretty good about them. The drop off from LSU from 9 to 10 is pretty substantial as far as I'm concerned. I am not a Carson Beck guy by any stretch of the imagination. I am not a Mario Cristobal guy by any stretch of the imagination. I think they're fine. I don't think they're great. And in order to be a championship team, you have to be great. I think Miami is going to drop, and they're going to drop fast. They're going to lose a lot more games than people think. Clemson is going to dog walk the entire ACC. The only thing that's going to stop Clemson from potentially running the table, Dabo says he thinks they can be the first 16 or 18-0 team, whatever that number is. I don't know that they're going to make that. South Carolina is really good this year. They got a tough non-conference game in week number 1 that's going to be very difficult. But outside of that, Clemson's going to dog walk the ACC. Miami is not a good football team. I have zero confidence in them. Arizona State at 11. Illinois, the home of Johnny Newton, at 12. South Carolina and Lenore Sellers at 13. A lot of people are very excited about Lenore Sellers. I am very excited about Lenore Sellers. You got Michigan at 14. DJ Lagway in Florida at 15. Lagway might be my Heisman Trophy winner. Haven't placed a bet on that yet, but I think you can get him at like 18 or 20 to 1. And if you're getting a good SEC quarterback at 20 to 1, you got to hammer that. My problem is, Max, I watched the SEC thing on Netflix, so I feel like I can't bet them too soon after watching that because I'm going to love these guys more after watching them. So you got to be smart about that. I can't let the emotions get in the way of my gambling philosophy.
I'm probably going to ride the DJ Lagway train with you, but that's also emotional because my brother's a Florida grad and he's been telling me about Lagway since he started there. So it's
he's a dude.
He is. And plus, I mean, I played with him a bunch in college football last year. It was a great time. We led quite a dynasty
he's a
down there
good
in
dude
Gainesville.
too. He jumped on with me on the show I do
Really?
on Sirius last year. So hopefully we'll get him again this year. That show, by the way, comes back next week. This week is the 16th on this weekend. So the 23rd, week 0, Dende back in action on Sirius XM channel 84.
Let's go, baby.
So we are so back. We just need the fall weather. This heat out here. I'm good. I'm done. I don't need it no more. No, go under the 90 degrees, please. I'm wearing more flannels. If you're watching us on YouTube right now, this is not a flannel, but I'm wearing a long shirt over a short sleeve hoodie. This is fall attire. I'm trying to will fall back with my own personal wardrobe. I'm failing right now, but I'm still trying to do that. SMU at 16, Kansas State 17, Oklahoma 18, A&M 19, Indiana 20. Indiana is going to be a disaster this year. I'm kind of like waiting for the downfall of Cignetti. He was like fun at the beginning of the year, and now he's like turned to annoying. Is like the transition that Dabo Sweeney made without any of the championships and any of the success. That's kind of what Kurt Cignetti is doing. I would like him to talk less and just go out there and beat good teams because their schedule last year was not very difficult. They don't have a very difficult schedule this year either, but I need them to be better. Ole Miss at 21, Iowa State at 22, Texas Tech 23, Tennessee 24, and then Boise State at 25. So that's your first AP poll. What does this mean? Not much, honestly. This is just a way for people to highlight the good teams like your Texases, your Penn States, your Ohio States, what have you. I don't care about none of these teams until I watch them play. I don't care about Texas until I watch Arch Manning play, but I don't care about Texas until I watch Arch Manning play in October when he's playing SEC schools. The non-conference stuff you can kind of get away with scheduling, not the toughest of opponents, and then Texas can they can scheme their way out of some things in the non-conference. Once you start to play the difficult teams in the SEC or in your particular conference that just know you a little bit more, things start to get a little difficult and a little different. I would also encourage everybody to not bet Arch Manning to win the Heisman at 6-1. I know it's enticing because of his last name. The preseason favorite for the Heisman has not won the award in well over 20 years. So do not bet that. Don't bet it. I know you're looking at it on whatever app that you use and it's speaking to you. It's looking at you like the Green Goblin mask is looking at Mr. Osborn in the Spider-Man movies. Do not fall for it. Do not bet Arch Manning to win the Heisman at, I think right now at most books it's 6-1. Maybe you find it at 7-1. But if he is the favorite at that book, do not bet him to win the Heisman. It is not going to end well for you. I am positive at some point Kevin and I are going to do a full preview of college football. Max, I actually have to be honest. When Kevin called me last night, I thought it was to set up when we are going to do a college football preview, because we have been texting back and forth without actually ironing out when we want to do that.
Mhm.
So I thought he was calling to do that. And I was like, bro, it's 7:30. Why are we doing? You could just
What are we
text
doing this
me.
now for?
Like, just shoot me a text. And then I had to do this, which I was fun, glad, but I thought he was going to text me or call me about doing a college football preview. I'm very excited about college football, if that wasn't obvious. Big college football guy.
Of course.
And again, we are back on next Saturday, week 0.
Hell yeah.
And then
man.
we are week 1. Week 1 is going to be not a lot of sleep for old Denton Day over here.
Yeah, I mean, dude, the second we get to, once we hit week 0, it's officially, we're off and running for me.
You're fully in there like swimwear. But week 1, I have a Thursday show. That's very late. I get up at 4:30. That's not changing. I have a Friday show. I have a Saturday show. I'm at a wedding on Sunday. It's the final wedding. It's like just deep enough or just early enough into the fall to be like, okay, like we'll allow it. And then I got a Monday show as well, still while getting up at 4:30 on most of those days. So I'm not
Salute you,
complaining,
soldier.
but it's going to be we are going to be off and running when we inevitably get there. Practice at 2 today. Dan Quinn talks at 1:30. You will hear some of that, if not all of that, when Chris Russell takes over coming up next year on the Team 980. That's it for me. Sheehan is back tomorrow, assuming that he does not have more aviation problems, which I'm going to assume that he is not. So he will be back tomorrow and Wednesday, and then I am in on Thursday and Friday. Tweet me at the Denton Day. I'm out of here. Chris Russell's next.